Crimson wastes, outskirts of Sector 13. They're circling us. From every side. What do we do? The man's scream tore through the red haze. He thrust both hands forward and forced an ice spear into existence. His aura shook like a dying flame. The spear slammed through a monster, an oversized insectoid brute with lava-like fractures glowing across its shell. It dropped, and in the same heartbeat, 5 more crawled over its corpse. Hold the line. Don't break formation. A woman hovered above them, wind screaming around her like a storm caller. Her hair snapped behind her, and pale green light bled from her eyes as runes carved themselves into the air. We just need time. Lucian will show up. He has to, wherever he is. He's not coming. The third man didn't raise his voice. He didn't even shake. He said it like a fact already written into the world. His sword was still in his grip, but its glow was faint, almost empty. We're finished. He stared past them, into the distance, where the horde rolled forward like a black ocean. Endless bodies, endless hunger. The pressure alone warped the air. Then the world split. Not with thunder, not with a spell, a crack that felt older than magic. The sky tore open. A jagged rift of black lightning speared down like a divine verdict. Everything beneath it dissolved without a sound. Monsters didn't even get the chance to scream. They turned to ash in a single breath. Smoke and cinders rose, and from the center of that ruin someone walked out. A man, tall, lean, soaked in black blood. Jet black hair hung over eyes that held no anger, no fear, not even surprise. Just cold exhaustion. His coat was scorched and ripped, barely clinging to his shoulders. His fingers were charred, twitching from overuse. He coughed hard, spat black blood into his palm, studied it for a second, then lifted his gaze to the man who had given up. Lucian Black. T.H. He let out a tired breath that sounded like 10 years of war. Then he disappeared in a snap of lightning. Half a blink later, he was inside the swarm. He stood still for a heartbeat. His shadow swelled and burst. Black fire exploded outward. Not normal fire. It moved wrong. It slithered like living serpents, whispering as it crawled. The flames climbed into mouths and eyes, wrapped around limbs, and devoured the monsters from the inside out. They shrieked. Claws tore the air. Bodies melted. The earth beneath them fused into glass. What is that? The woman whispered, voice hollow. He's cooking them alive without even moving. Those are SSS-ranked beasts, the ice user stammered. He's wiping them like they're nothing. Of course he is. The swordsman's voice drifted, almost reverent. That's Lucian Black. Strongest hunter alive. The only awakener of an XXX rank ability. Infinite replication. And then Lucian showed why. He raised one hand. A simple flick. His body fractured, not in pain, but in power. 12 Lucians stepped out of him like shattered reflections becoming real. Each one carried a different presence. Each one took a different stance. One lifted his palm, eyes turning silver. Gravity collapsed around a cluster of monsters and crushed them into tight, bloody cubes. Another's skin flowed into obsidian steel. His arms reshaped into twin war axes. He spun once and cleaved 3 towering brutes in a single arc. A third dissolved into mist, reappeared inside the maw of a wyvern the size of a building. A second later, the wyvern detonated from the inside, ripped apart by time distortion. A fourth clapped his hands. The sound became a blade. The ripple sliced through armor and flesh like paper. Each clone fought with the power Lucian had stolen over the years. Copied, perfected, stored in his soul like a library built from corpses. He wasn't battling the horde. He was directing its execution. Mana-charged wind twisted across the wasteland, not from nature, but from too many high-tier abilities colliding at once. Damn it, they're still pouring in, the woman shouted as more monsters crested the eastern ridge. Dozens of them, massive, plated, and vicious. One roared and split open a third jaw from its stomach, vomiting parasitic worms that latched onto corpses and dragged them back to their feet. Lucian blinked toward it. One clone moved with him. That clone knelt and pressed his palm to the ground. The earth under the monsters didn't crack. It died. A domain of decay bloomed beneath them, devouring mana, time, and mass itself. Their armor crumbled. Their bodies withered mid-step. Lucian appeared above the largest beast and spoke for the first time, voice flat as stone. You shouldn't exist. He pointed like a gun. A black orb formed above his fingertip, compressed anti-reality. It fired. No explosion. No impact sound. Anything it touched simply vanished. Space itself refused to hold it. The beast didn't fall. It was just gone. The woman swallowed hard. Do you see this? He isn't even using his main ability. The swordsman nodded slowly. He's clearing trash. A screech split the clouds. A shadow dropped from the sky. Sky Devourer. A warship-sized nightmare with 12 wings and eyes burning with cursed lightning. It dove straight at Lucian, tearing the air apart. Lucian looked up. His coat fluttered. His eyes narrowed. The beast closed in, and Lucian smiled. For the first time in years, power surged off him. Not light exactly, but something made from every ability he had ever taken. The sky dimmed. Everything within 100 meters went silent. The air thickened like the world was holding its breath. Copy code, Abyss Pulse. World Breaker Protocol. The ground under him shattered. Prismatic black energy erupted from his body, threaded with crimson corruption and silver arcs of divinity. He shot upward and met the Devourer head-on. The blast wasn't loud. It was clean. A silent ripple folded the air, and the beast imploded, dragged into a dimensional tear Lucian carved open with his bare hands. He landed lightly, boots crunching on scorched stone. Every monster around them was gone. The sky cleared. Silence returned. The 12 clones dissolved back into him in flickers of black light. Lucian turned toward the 3 survivors. The woman drifted down, her wind dying into a weak breeze. Lucian, the swordsman stepped forward, eyes searching his face. You all right? Lucian didn't answer. He stared at the 3rd man, the one who had said they were doomed. His voice came out cold, almost bored. Where's your master, dog? Where's your master, dog? Lucian didn't flinch. He is right here. The reply came from behind the shattered ridge. Boots clicked on metal. 5 figures stepped out through the smoke, cloaks dragging, armor dented, weapons loose in their hands. The front one walked like the battlefield belonged to him. White blonde hair, a jagged scar slashed over his left brow. Eyes cold enough to cut glass. Garrick. Lucian turned toward him, a tired smirk tugging at his mouth. Finally done hiding. He tilted his head like he was studying something boring. Congrats, though. You actually managed to pull it off. Poisoning me? Smart. If I were you, I'd do the same. He took a slow step forward, running blood-slick fingers through his hair. Living in my shadow must be tiring. Garrick's face tightened. Lucian didn't stop. You remember it, right? All those years behind me. Like a pet on a leash. Watching, training, trying to catch up, and always coming up short. Nobody said your name unless I was standing next to you. Garrick's hand twitched near his blade. And now you finally swing at me. Lucian's voice dropped, calm but sharp. Not in a duel. Not face to face. You slipped poison into me like a rat. You bastard, Garrick spat. Lucian's eyes went flat. You know what's worse than being weak, Garrick? Being weak and scared. That's you. A coward wrapped in stolen pride. Something snapped in Garrick. He blurred forward. Steel flashed twice. Lucian leaned aside like he was dodging rain. His body moved with lazy precision. He turned, drove an elbow into Garrick's spine, then booted him into the dust. The other force surged. Volge, the red-haired brute, swung a boulder-level punch at Lucian's back. The ground split from the force alone. Lucian's pupils flicked gold. Time slowed around him. Chronoperception. He slid out of the path, twisted under the punch, and smashed a knee into Volge's ribs. Bone cracked. The giant wheezed and folded. Above, Kale dropped in with twin shadow daggers aimed for Lucian's throat. Lucian snapped his fingers. Black fire shot upward like hunting snakes. It swallowed the shadows mid-air. Kale screamed as his blades dissolved. Lucian spun and kicked him into the remains of a broken tower. Stone detonated. Pathetic, Lucian muttered. All that plotting and you're still this soft? Garrett hauled himself up, rage boiling. Lightning flared across his eyes. I'll rip your heart out. Stormbreaker pulse ignited. Plasma armor crawled over his body, crackling and bright. His blade became a streak of blue thunder as he launched like a railgun. Lucian shifted left, and the poison hit. Just a heartbeat of delay, barely visible, but enough. The blade kissed his shoulder. A shallow cut. Still blood. Lucian staggered a step. Garrick saw it and grinned like he'd waited his whole life for that moment. There, you bleed too. Not so untouchable now, huh? Lucian steadied himself. His fingers trembled, but his stare went darker. That was your one chance. The air snapped. 12 Lucians blinked into existence around them. Each copy carried a different pressure, a different color of death. One crackled with lightning. Another breathed ice. A third bent gravity, so the ground groaned. A fourth floated, controlling a ring of ether, swords like satellites. They hit together. Kale tried to melt in his shadow again, only to be skewered by a blade that hummed through dimensions. Volge raised his arms to brace. Then a Lucian with void arms shattered his guard and punched him into the dirt hard enough to leave a crater. One lackey screamed out a barrier spell. His words didn't finish. Space folded, swallowed him whole, and erased him like he'd never existed. In seconds, the squad was gone. Only Garrick stood, barely. Wounds laced his body. His chest heaved. His aura flickered like a dying bulb. Lucian walked toward him, step by step. The clones returned to him in silent flashes. But Lucian's pace was slower now, his breath rougher. The poison was spreading. You bastard, Garrick rasped, clutching his side. I had to. I didn't have a choice. Lucian stopped a few feet away. His voice lowered. Yeah, you did. He stared at him like someone looking at a disappointment they'd seen 1,000 times. That's why you'll always be less. You needed poison. You needed numbers. His lips curled faintly. I only needed a fraction of myself to crush you. Then he moved, too fast to follow. He was behind Garrick before the air caught up, 2 fingers pressed to Garrick's neck. Darkness pulsed. Garrick's nervous system locked. His legs gave out. He hit the ground twitching, paralyzed. Lucian crouched beside him. Next time you try to topple a king, he whispered near Garrick's ear, don't use a peasant's dagger. He stood, and his body betrayed him. The black in his veins glowed brighter. His legs shook. His vision wavered. He took one step, staggered, and dropped to a knee. Shit. The poison finally clawed past his regeneration. He coughed hard, black blood splattering across the broken stone. His heartbeat slowed. His mana flickered like a candle fighting wind. He'd won. He'd wiped them out. But the cost was catching up. His shoulders pitched forward. And Lucian Black, the strongest hunter alive, hit the ground. Not to a blade. Not to war. To the thing he'd never respected enough to guard against. Betrayal. Silence swallowed the battlefield. Garrick lay nearby, still shaking and groaning, forcing his head up to stare at Lucian's fallen body. Even like this, Lucian looked untouchable. Blood ran from his mouth. His eyes stayed open, heavy but defiant, glare still sharp enough to crush the air. He didn't look defeated. He looked like he chose to kneel. Garrick coughed, rolled onto his side, and dragged himself upright. Every bone screamed. Every breath burned. But he stood anyway, swaying in the ash. Thunder rumbled above. Garrick didn't care. You still look smug, he rasped, stepping closer. Even bleeding out. Even poisoned. You still stare at me like I'm dirt. Lucian's fingers twitched. Alive. Barely. Garrick's hatred boiled over. That's what you've always done. Everyone compare me to you. The perfect hunter. The untouchable XXX rank freak. His voice cracked with years of rot. No matter what I did, I was second. Always the other one. Lucian's eyelids lifted a sliver. Black eyes dim but calm. Still calm. Still looking past Garrick like he barely mattered. Garrick's face twisted. Don't look at me like that. Lucian's mouth moved. A whisper slid out, soaked in blood. Still weak. Garrick froze. Lucian gave a faint, broken chuckle. You poisoned me. You brought a squad. Watch them die. His voice was gravel. And you're still shaking. Garrick's hands trembled. Not fear. Pure rage. Shut up. He yanked his blade free. Lightning crawled along the edge, venom humming through the steel. He raised it high with both hands like he was lifting judgment itself. Lucian didn't move. Couldn't. But his eyes didn't beg. Didn't fear. Just watched. "I'm going to erase you," Garrick snarled. "And when I do, I'll finally be the strongest. No more shadows. No more second place. You'll still be nothing. Quiet. Flat. Brutal." The words hit harder than any punch. Garrick screamed and drove the blade down, straight into Lucian's chest. Steel punched through skin, bone, heart. Blood burst up, hot and dark, washing over Garrick's arms. The impact echoed across the dead wasteland. Lucian gasped once, then went still. Garrick stumbled back, breathing like he'd run through hell. Lucian's body jerked and stopped. Head sagged sideways. Eyes open. Empty. Black blood pooled beneath him, mixing with ash and shattered stone. Garrick stared. Then he laughed. Low at first, then louder. Cracked. Hysterical. "I did it." He threw his head back toward the storming sky, laughing until it hurt. "I killed Lucian Black. You hear me? I killed the untouchable." He dropped to his knees, laughing so hard tears cut clean lines through the blood on his face. Lightning flashed overhead, but the battlefield didn't celebrate. It just stayed silent, ash drifting, a god dead in the dirt. Lucian Black, slain by the one who hated him most. And somewhere under that silence, something shifted, because even as Lucian's heart stopped, something deeper stirred. The poison had finished him, but so had his last smile.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Ashvale, outskirts of Sector 5. Lucian's room, 6:03 a.m. Bam! The door swung open with a bang. "Brat, time to wake up. You're supposed to be at the academy today for the awakening ceremony. You shouldn't be in bed at a time like this." Lucian's eyes shot open as the voice slammed into his brain like a shockwave. His breathing was sharp, shallow. For a moment, he didn't move. His hands clutched the sheets. Sweat clung to his skin. Then he sat up. The room was small, familiar. A single desk by the wall. The cracked mirror near the wardrobe. The old posters of hunters on the wall, the ones he tore down years ago. The ones he remembered dying with this world. No way. His fingers trembled as he touched his chest. No wound. No blood. No pain. Just the rhythmic beat of a heart that shouldn't be beating. He remembered it clearly. Garrick's blade stabbing through him, the poison in his veins, the cold dirt beneath his cheek. He was dead. Dead. But then he heard the footsteps. And the voice again, closer now, annoyed. "Oi, Lucian, if you don't come out in the next 10 seconds, I'm dragging your ass out of that bed and dumping you into the cold bath." He turned slowly. There at the doorway. His sister, Lucy. Messy hair tied in a loose bun. A black tank top and sweats. The same annoyed scowl she always had in the mornings. Her arms crossed. Her voice full of bite. But she was there. Alive. Lucian blinked hard. His mouth fell open. His throat tightened. This wasn't a dream. It couldn't be. He could feel the weight of the blanket. The smell of the old wood. Her manna. Unmistakable. Familiar. This was 10 years ago. His eyes darted toward the mirror. What looked back at him wasn't the cold-eyed man who had torn through monster hordes and died betrayed. It was a 16-year-old boy. Slim frame. Black hair untouched by war. Eyes wide. Untainted. He was back. Back to the day it all began. Lucian turned back to Lucy. She raised a brow. "Why were you looking at me like I've grown 2 heads? Get dressed already. The ceremony starts in less than an hour." His lip trembled. She was scolding him. Just like before. Just like always. And she was alive. He didn't wait. He got up, stumbled over the bed frame, and wrapped his arms around her tightly. "I missed you." The words broke from his mouth before he could stop them. She froze. The annoyance dropped from her face. "What?" Lucian held her tighter, his voice cracking. "I miss you so much." Lucy blinked, stunned. Then a small, crooked smile crept onto her face. "What you saying, dumbass?" she said softly, tapping his head. "I'm always here." "Well, except when I dive into the gates, sure, but I always come back, don't I?" He didn't answer. He just buried his face into her shoulder. She smelled like cheap shampoo and lemon-scented manna spray. "Home. Warm." Lucy frowned a bit, but her voice lowered. "Lucian, are you okay?" He let out a slow breath and pulled back, rubbing his eyes like he'd just woken from the worst nightmare in history. "Yeah, I just had a weird dream." She squinted. "Was I dead in it?" He paused. "Yeah." She smacked his head lightly. "Idiot. Don't go killing me off in your dreams, brat." Lucian laughed, a small broken thing, but real. She stepped back, hands on her hips. "You better hurry up. Today's big. You only awaken once. And I swear, if you come out looking like a disaster, I'll personally light your hair on fire." He gave a short nod, still shaken but calm. "I'll be ready soon." "Good." She turned on her heel. "Breakfast's on the table. Don't make me call you again." She walked off. Lucian stood in silence, then looked back into the mirror. 16 years old. Today was the awakening. The first day of his path as a hunter. The first day of being assigned an ability, stepping into the academy, and entering the path that would eventually lead to the monster raids, Garrick, the betrayal, and he inhaled sharply. Not this time. This time, he wasn't just a clueless kid. This time, he had 10 years of experience, knowledge, strategy, pain, and most importantly, he had Lucy. He ran his hand through his hair and looked out the window. The sun was rising over the broken skyline of Ashvale. Distant airships moved across the clouds like metal birds. The barrier walls around the city shimmered faintly in the morning manna. Lucian smiled. "I've got work to do." A few minutes later, Lucian stood in front of the wardrobe, hand resting on the door for a second longer than he needed to. The air still felt surreal. His heartbeat had finally steadied, but his mind was anything but calm. He opened the wardrobe. Inside were clothes he hadn't seen in years. His old uniform folded neatly, the dark blue jacket with the silver trim and the Ashvale Academy crest barely faded from wash. He remembered how he used to hate it. Now, just touching it made him feel something strange, like reaching through time and grabbing hold of a version of himself that never had a chance. He slipped the shirt over his head, buttoned it slow, then the jacket, pulled on the pants. Socks mismatched like always. He chuckled to himself. Some things didn't change. Last, he reached for the mirror and adjusted the collar. He looked like a kid trying to play adult, but inside, he wasn't. He looked at himself again. This time, no disbelief, only focus. Let's do this right. The table was small, metal-legged, and chipped at the corners. The same wobbly chair waited for him, pushed halfway in. Lucy was already at the stove, hair tied tighter now. She moved fast, flipping something in the pan with her left hand while stirring tea with her right. The smell of eggs, toast, and slightly burnt manna crystals hit his nose. God, he missed this. "Took you long enough," she said without turning. Was starting to think the cold bath was the only option. Lucian sat, grabbing a slice of toast from the plate she dumped in front of him. "Still threatening me with torture. Nice to know time doesn't mellow you." "Brat," she smirked. He bit into the toast and almost laughed. Dry. Way too much butter. No one could ruin toast like Lucy. And yet, it was the best damn thing he'd eaten in years. She sat across from him, grabbing her own cup. "So, nervous?" Lucian shrugged. "A bit." She nodded like she expected that. "Makes sense. The awakening crystal's not exactly gentle. It pulls everything from your soul, like digging into your bones and memories at the same time." He sipped the tea. Lukewarm. Slightly metallic. Still perfect. She leaned forward, her tone softening just a bit. "Look, whatever happens, don't take it too hard, okay? Not everyone gets something flashy. A lot of people get normal stuff. Support class. Enhancer types. Even no cast abilities." Lucian looked at her. That face. The one that used to look worn down, but kept smiling. The one that didn't survive past his first year after awakening. The one that kept him going long after she was gone. He smiled faintly. "I know." Lucy blinked. "Wow, that's it? No dramatic, I'm going to be the strongest rant? No empty confidence?" He shook his head. "Nope. Just, I'm ready. She narrowed her eyes. You're acting weird today. I had a weird dream, remember? Still, they sat in quiet for a while. Just the faint hum of the neighborhood generators outside. The occasional clang of the stove cooling. Lucian finished the toast and downed the last of the tea. Then he stood and grabbed his academy satchel from the side hook, slinging it over one shoulder. Lucy stood too. She was slightly taller than him still, but just barely. All right, she said, looking him over. Hair looks all right. Uniform straight. You don't look like a homeless raccoon for once. Lucian smirked. That's the nicest thing you've said to me. Don't get used to it. He moved toward the door, hand on the knob. Before stepping out, he turned back. Hey, Lucy. She raised a brow. Yeah. Thanks. She looked confused for a moment. They just gave him that same half smirk, half sigh she always used when she didn't understand but didn't want to push. Whatever, loser. Go awaken your weird power, or whatever. Lucian gave a small wave, then stepped outside into the soft golden light of the morning. The layout, the people, the pressure. But now he wasn't some nervous 16-year-old. Asheville, Sector 5. Outer streets. Lucian stepped out into the street as the sun cracked fully over the skyline. The early morning haze still clung to the buildings, painting the world in orange and gold. Airships hummed in the distance, sleek and wide like steel dragons drifting between towers. Mana conduits pulsed gently through the city walls, the faint glow of runes keeping the outer shield intact. Students in academy uniforms walked ahead, laughing, some nervous, some cocky. Lucian's eyes drifted up to the tower beyond the horizon. He could just barely see the peak of the barrier core, the pulsating engine that kept Sector 5 standing. He sighed. This was the calm, but it hadn't always been this way. 20 years ago, the collapse. The skies cracked first. Like glass under a giant's fist, the ozone tore open across the planet. From those tears came beasts, not aliens, not animals, but monsters. Creatures that didn't belong to this world. Some walked, some crawled, some flew. All of them fed on human life like it was currency. Cities fell in days, nations in weeks. They weren't organized, just endless, driven by something no one could understand. They didn't stop to eat. They didn't build. They only destroyed. They were called the Void Spawn, and the Earth became their feeding ground. Within the first year, 80% of the global population vanished. Skyscrapers turned into nests. Oceans boiled from leviathans that slithered beneath the waves. The sky was torn apart by flying wraiths that screamed so loud they shattered aircraft mid-flight. People ran, died, hid, and then humanity changed. The birth of awakeners. No one saw it coming. The first awakening was a girl named Ima, a teenager hiding in a flooded subway tunnel in old Japan. Cornered by a beast with 3 skulls and a dozen arms, she screamed, not in fear, but in rage. The world answered. She didn't cast magic. She became it. Light tore out from her body, forming spears of pure energy that danced like lightning. She tore the beast in half without knowing how. It was as if her soul remembered something her body didn't. Others followed. Some awakened in fire, some in frost. Some could bend space, slow time, call beasts, or manipulate their own biology. The awakening didn't follow science or bloodline. It followed will, the will to fight, to survive. Within a year, a new species was born, awakeners. The counteroffensive. With powers awakened, the survivors stopped running. A man named Ragnar Thorn led the first organized resistance. A warlord turned savior. He awakened a power that let him channel the emotions of those around him into pure destructive force. His battle cry could level mountains. His rage cracked continents. He formed the first battalion, the Crimson Banner, and reclaimed ground from the monsters inch by inch. Not far behind him came Zaramine, who could control blood like a conductor commanding an orchestra. In one battle, she turned an entire city's fallen population into spectral blades that decimated a Leviathan swarm. As more awakeners emerged, they began to group by city, by cause, by power type. Soon they created a unified force. And then, the Hunter Association was born. The hunters and the families. At first, they were just soldiers, volunteers. But as powers grew, so did influence. Those with higher-tier abilities stood above the rest. Some could destroy monsters by the dozens. Some were immortal. Some changed reality itself. These elites became legends, and legends drew followers. So they built their own families. Ragnar founded House Thorn, built on strength and fearlessness. Zara led House Mine, known for bloodline magic and brutal precision. Others rose too. House Selim, for aerial dominion. House Verdant, who could command nature and beasts. House Uriai, born from Shadow, infamous for assassination and scouting. Each family guarded a piece of the reclaimed earth, carving out strongholds and naming themselves not just survivors, but kings. But raw strength wasn't enough. The Academy and the sectors. 10 years after the collapse, as the world began to stabilize, a unified plan formed. Train the next generation. Not just to fight, but to lead. Thus came the Hunter Academies. Institutions built in the strongest sectors of the world, each protected by layers of ruined towers, automated barriers, and elite families. Students would enter at 16. By 20, they would either graduate or die trying. The academies didn't just test for strength. They broke students down, trained them for real-world battle, simulated dungeon gates, constructed beast arenas, created ranking systems, pushed them to awaken their true power potential. Only the best survived, and among them, those who awakened abilities classified beyond the standard rankings, AS, even SSS, were scouted for elite tasks. But beyond them all, there was one rank feared and revered, XXX. Only one person had ever awakened it. Lucian Black, present-day, Ashvale Academy. Lucian walked down the paved lane leading toward the main gates, flanked by mana-fused walls humming faintly with defensive wards. The city curved behind him, buildings tall but old. Magic lights flickered beside cracked bricks. Tech was limited. Monsters destroyed the internet, satellites, even spaceflight. Now everything ran on mana cores and short-range systems. Ahead, the towering gates of Ashvale Academy gleamed in polished obsidian. Guards stood outside in black armor, veteran hunters. Above the gates, etched in silver, through trial, purpose, through pain, power. Lucian passed through the entrance scanner. It pulsed, scanning his mana signature. Subject, Lucian Black, first-year cadet. Status, approved. He stepped through. The plaza opened like a stadium. Dozens of students filled it already, standing in lines near the awakening crystal. A massive stone pulsing with life. It floated above a ring of golden runes, circling slow, almost breathing. The crystal wasn't just magic. It was alive, forged from the body of a dead god beast. One of the first void-spawned kings. It could peer into his soul and pull out its truth. Lucian remembered it well. The heat of it, the cold after, the burning pain of his ability taking root. He'd screamed that day. Today, he wouldn't. He moved toward the front line. Eyes glanced his way. He didn't care. He had already lived this day once. Ashvale Academy, Awakening Hall, waiting area. The air inside the hall was tense. Students sat in orderly rows, some whispering excitedly, others sweating bullets. The awakening crystal hovered in the center, pulsing slow like a giant heartbeat. Lucian sat near the back, arms crossed, back leaning into the cold wall. His legs stretched slightly, one foot tapping rhythmically against the floor. His eyes were half-lidded, his expression blank. Come on, just get it over with. He was bored. He was a grown man in a 16-year-old body, surrounded by teenagers, surrounded by nerves and dumb jokes, and people trying to size each other up like this was a social battlefield. He'd already fought real ones. Lucian sighed and shut his eyes, trying to block out the pointless chatter. All he wanted was for the dean to come, say his dramatic little speech, let them touch the crystal, and leave. Then the headlines would spread like wildfire. New Awakener disrupts ceremony. XXX rank ability confirmed. Blah, blah, blah. The world would flip. He'd be famous again. Feared. Studied. Obsessed over. He already knew the pattern. Still, He felt tired. He didn't want the attention. Not this time. He just wanted to get stronger, fast, and protect the only person that ever mattered before the same tragedy repeated itself. His fingers clenched into a fist. Hey! Lucian's eyes opened slowly. A girl stood in front of him, uniform neat, hair tied behind in a loose braid. Her face was soft, young, unsure, but there was something familiar in her eyes, something that pulled at his memory like a thread unraveling. Is this seat free? She asked. Lucian nodded. She sat beside him, smoothing her skirt and clasping her hands on her lap. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just stared straight ahead, like she was trying to calm her own heart. Lucian tilted his head slightly, looking at her out of the corner of his eye. No way. Evelyn. She looked the same. A bit more innocent, maybe, back straighter, still trying too hard to look composed. He remembered her. Vaguely. She had awakened a trash-tier ability, pedal step, a movement skill that made her run slightly lighter on her feet. Barely good for scouting, completely useless in real combat. Her family, House Marin, had cast her out a week later. She never recovered. Try to keep training. Try to prove herself. He lost contact with her after his sister died. After everything changed, he never saw what became of her. Just like before, Lucian sighed in his head. I couldn't help her then. Maybe this time, I can. The girl finally turned toward him, offering a small, polite smile. I'm Evelyn. Evelyn Marin. Lucian gave a short nod. Lucian Black. Evelyn blinked, then blinked again. Her mouth parted slightly. Black? As in, Lucy Black. Lucian looked sideways at her. Yeah, she's my sister. Evelyn's eyes went wide. Her whole posture straightened like someone had lit a fire under her. Oh my God, you mean the Lucy Black? The Hellflame Goddess? The one who burned a whole dungeon field when she was 17? You're related to her. Lucian gave a small, exhausted smile. Yeah. Evelyn leaned in closer, eyes practically sparkling now. That's insane. She's like one of the strongest SSS rankers under 30. I saw a video where she fought off 3 spectral drakes and didn't even blink. Is it true her flames can melt steel walls like butter? Lucian rubbed his temple. She's strong. That's for sure. Evelyn grinned, completely unfazed by his flat tone. I can't believe I'm sitting next to her brother. That's wild. What about your parents? Weren't they famous too? Lucian's smile dimmed. They were. My dad was a weapon caster. Created the Void Reaver blade line. Mom specialized in combat enchantments. Both of them were top-level awakeners. Evelyn nodded, slowly realizing the weight behind his voice. Were. Lucian looked forward. Yeah, they're gone. Oh, she said softly, shrinking a bit. I'm sorry. He shrugged. It was a long time ago. There was a short silence. Evelyn looked down at her hands. You must have such high expectations. Your whole family's like legendary. Lucian didn't respond. She sighed. I don't think I'm going to get anything good. My older brother awakened Stormbinders. He can summon chains of lightning from the sky. My parents are both core-level mages. But me? She let out a weak laugh. I'm probably going to get something like pedal step. Lucian's eyes twitched slightly. Well, at least she's consistent. He looked at her again, really looked, still trying to laugh off her own fear, still pretending it wouldn't matter, still preparing herself for rejection before it happened. Still alone. Lucian looked away and sighed. You never know, he said quietly. Evelyn turned toward him. Huh, you might awaken something great. She smiled softly, appreciating it, but not believing it. Just like before. Far ahead, the crystal pulsed louder now. Instructors were beginning to take attendance. The crowd shifted as names were called forward. Lucian leaned back in his chair. Same world. Same people. But this time, he wasn't walking blind. He'd seen who lived, who died, who got crushed under the weight of expectations, and who had the potential to be more, if only someone reached out first. Lucian looked sideways at Evelyn. Maybe this time, he wouldn't sit on the sidelines. Maybe this time, she wouldn't have to face it alone. Attention, students. A heavy buzz rippled through the hall as lights dimmed slightly, drawing everyone's attention to the raised platform near the awakening crystal. The crystal pulsed brighter now, deeper, louder. It was alive, and it was hungry. It always was. Then, a loud, crisp voice echoed through the sound system. "Attention, students." The room fell into silence instantly. Footsteps echoed. A tall man in a sharp black overcoat walked slowly onto the platform. His presence was calm, but heavy, like a storm behind glass. His hair was iron gray, short and neat, eyes sharp as a hawk's. He didn't carry a weapon. He was one. He stopped at the center of the stage and folded his hands behind his back. "I am Dean Garros." Simple. No extra titles. No flair. But everyone in Asheville knew the name. Garros, the one who brought down a gate-born behemoth alone and lived to tell the tale. Garros, who refused to join any of the major families. Garros, who became Dean of Asheville Academy not by politics, but by reputation. Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly. "Still looks the same." Garros looked over the crowd. His voice, when he spoke again, was calm, but every word landed heavy. "Today you stand at the edge of something irreversible." The awakening crystal pulsed behind him, as if reacting to his voice. "For most of you, this will be your first real step into the world. A world that does not care who your parents are. A world that does not wait for you to feel ready. A world where hesitation is death and failure has a price." Evelyn tensed beside Lucian. Some students looked away. Garros continued. "The awakening process is not gentle. The crystal will reach into your soul, into the deepest part of who you are. It will pull, it will tear, and it will show you what's buried inside. Some of you will awaken great power. Others will not." He let the pause linger. "There are students every year who walk out of this hall unchanged. Or worse, with abilities that are mocked, discarded, ignored." More silence. Then, "But hear this, even a weak spark can start a wildfire. Some of the strongest awakeners in history started with broken gifts. What matters is what you do after." Lucian smirked faintly. He always did say that part well. Garros turned to look at the crystal now. "This is the heart of the hall, carved from the crystallized core of a fallen Rift Beast King. It's alive, and it sees more than you do. It does not lie. It does not flatter. It only reveals." The lights dimmed around the edges of the auditorium as mana surged through the room's runes. The crystal floated higher, its glow becoming almost liquid like molten starlight. A long queue began to form as instructors called names from floating panels. One by one, you'll step forward. You'll place your hand on the crystal, and it will answer. Garros stepped down from the stage without another word. That was all. That was enough. Lucian watched him as he walked past, cloak brushing the stone floor like a shadow cutting across sunlight. Evelyn shifted nervously beside him. Lucian leaned back again, eyes on the crystal. "Here we go." The line moved slowly. One by one, students walked up, trembling or proud. Some screamed. Some cried. Some fell to their knees as the crystal burned into their soul. Each time, a result flashed across the floating display. Name, Callan Griff. Ability, Minor Hardening. Rank, D. Name, Rosa Millen. Ability, Water Thread. Rank, C+. Name, Theo Carve. Ability, Gravity Touch. Rank, B. There were cheers, applause, polite claps, but also silence. One boy got no result at all. His name vanished from the list like it had never existed. He walked back to his seat alone, pale, eyes hollow. No one said a word. Lucian's fingers drummed the armrest of his chair. Evelyn's hands had gone pale where they clutched her skirt. "Still think you'll get Petal's step?" he said quietly. She let out a breathy laugh, clearly trying not to throw up. "At this point, I'd take Petal's step and frame it." Lucian smiled faintly, then looked forward. His name was coming soon. The instructors kept calling names. Another student stepped forward, then another. More average abilities, more mid-tier talents. Then, the hall lights flickered just slightly. The crystal pulsed harder, sharper. An instructor's voice echoed through the hall. "Garrick Thorne." Lucian's smirk twitched the moment he heard it. He didn't even have to look. He could already feel the shift in the air, the sudden hush, the weight of attention snapping toward one direction like a magnetic pull. Footsteps echoed boldly across the stone floor. A boy, tall for his age, broad-shouldered and clean-cut, walked confidently toward the platform. His uniform was perfectly pressed, his hair combed back like he was already ready for the press photos. Lucian slowly turned his head, resting his chin on his hand. "There you are, golden boy." Garrick stepped onto the platform with the poise of someone who believed he was born to be admired. He looked left, right, took in the crowd like it belonged to him already. Then he placed his hand on the crystal. The glow that followed wasn't gradual. It exploded. White lightning burst outward from the base of the crystal, crackling along the arcane runes on the floor. Wind surged, kicking up dust and light papers. The crystal spun faster, faster, until it locked on his frequency, then released a single loud pulse like thunder in the middle of the hall. The display above flashed in gold. Name, Garrick Thorne. Ability, Lightning Descent. Classification, Elemental, Offensive. Rank, SS. The hall erupted. Students clapped, cheered, some even stood. One girl shouted, "No way," as arcs of electricity danced up Garrick's arm, uncontained sparks flashing in the air like fireflies on caffeine. He turned to the crowd and gave a small, practiced smile. A humble nod. Lucian watched, completely unfazed. His eyes were half-lidded. Calm, lazy even, still full of yourself, still chasing a spotlight. Garrick stepped off the platform, lightning fading as he walked back to his row, seated right in the middle of the front section. He passed Lucian without glancing his way. Lucian tilted his head. "That's fine. Ignore me for now." He leaned back again, eyes still watching the glowing crystal. "You'll see me soon enough, and this time I won't die at your hands." He didn't hate Garrick. No, but he didn't forgive him either. And when the moment came, when it was Lucian's turn, he'd make sure Garrick remembered his name forever. Ashvale Academy, Awakening Hall. One by one, the students kept stepping up to the crystal. Abilities flashed across the display. Ranks rolled in, C, B, even a rare A. Some cheered, some cried, some walked away broken. The Awakening Hall was built like a stage for gods to be born and dreams to be crushed. And Lucian was just waiting, still in his seat, still calm. But he felt it now, that pull in his chest, the pressure in the air. His name was coming. It was close. He took a slow breath, then heard it. Evelyn Marin. Lucian's heart froze. Evelyn blinked beside him. She looked like someone had just knocked the wind out of her. "Oh, that's me." She stood slowly, clutching her hands together. Lucian gave a small nod. "Go on." She laughed nervously. "Don't laugh if I explode or pass out. I'll only laugh a little." She rolled her eyes, took a breath, and walked forward, her steps stiff and light. Lucian leaned forward now, eyes narrowing just slightly. He wasn't worried. Not really. He already knew what she was going to awaken. Pedal step, a trash tier skill. Low mana usage, barely enhanced agility. She was going to touch the crystal, get the results, sit back down, and the world would go back to normal. He was even planning to comfort her after. Say something cheesy like, "It's not about the ability, it's how you use it." But then, she placed her hand on the crystal, and everything broke. The crystal screamed. Not figuratively. It screamed. A high-pitched, spiraling sound echoed through the chamber like steel grinding against glass. The entire platform flashed black and silver, lines of corrupted light running like veins through the glowing stone. Students gasped. The instructors stood immediately, guards flinching toward their weapons. Lucian stood too, but not because of the light, not because of the reaction. He knew this feeling, this exact moment, the twisting of mana in the air, the backlash in the soul, the cold weight in the stomach. His mouth slowly opened as his eyes locked onto the glowing screen above the crystal. It flashed, glitched, then stabilized. Name, Evelyn Marin. Ability, Infinite Replication. Classification, System Level, Undefined. Rank, XXX. The room exploded. What? Wait, isn't that? Even Dean Garros stood from his seat now, eyes sharp, mouth drawn into a tight line. Lucian didn't speak. His body had gone still. Too still. Evelyn stood on the platform, her hair floating slightly from the pulsing energy around her. Symbols swirled around her arms, thousands of them, blinking in and out of existence like data being written into her very soul. She stumbled slightly, blinking in confusion. I feel weird, like something's opening inside me. One of the instructors ran to her side and caught her gently before she collapsed. Lucian kept watching, eyes wide, mouth dry. No, that's my ability. His mind was racing, faster than it ever had. That was his ability. Infinite replication. The same energy, the same system-level structure, the same system signature. He had lived with it for years, had mastered it, had died with it. And now, she had it. Why? How? Lucian swallowed, his throat tight. He sat back down, slowly, like the floor beneath him had become unstable. This isn't right. His thoughts came in fast, wild bursts. Was this part coming back? Did I split the system by returning? Is this some kind of paradox? If she has it, then what will I get? He clenched his fists. He didn't notice he was shaking until his nails dug into his palm. Evelyn was helped back to her seat, still glowing faintly. The other students stared at her like she was made of myth now. Even Garrick was watching with narrowed eyes, lips slightly parted. He looked annoyed, like someone just stepped into a spotlight he thought belonged to him. Lucian's heart pounded harder. I'm not supposed to be the one surprised. I'm the one who knows everything. I'm the one with the plan. But now, his future was blurred. His steps weren't his anymore. He could feel it. He'd been certain this would be the moment, that he would walk up, place his hand on the crystal, and the world would remember the name Lucian Black. But now, he didn't know what would happen. And that terrified him. He glanced at Evelyn. She looked confused, overwhelmed, and maybe a little scared. She kept glancing at her hands like something was about to fall out of her palms. Lucian looked away. He didn't know what to feel. Pride? Relief? Jealousy? Fear? All of it. Then came the next name, Lucian Black. The hall grew quiet again. Just seconds ago, it was full of gasps and whispers over Evelyn's awakening. Triple X rank, system level, infinite replication. A legend born from someone no one expected. But now, the name Black brought new weight. Heads turned, voices lowered, eyes locked onto the boy sitting near the back. Lucian stood slowly. His legs moved on instinct, but inside his mind was chaos. He didn't look at anyone. Not Evelyn, not Garrick, not the instructors. Not even Dean Garros, who had folded his arms now, watching closely. The only thing Lucian looked at was the crystal, still pulsing, still glowing with remnants of Evelyn's awakening. Still hungry. His steps echoed louder than they should have. The hall didn't move. No one whispered anymore. Because he wasn't just anyone. He was Lucy Black's brother, the younger sibling of the Hellflame goddess, the son of two dead legends. A Black wasn't just a name, it was a legacy. So even after Evelyn's surprise, they expected something from him. They waited. And Lucian didn't even know what he was walking into. He stepped onto the platform. The crystal hovered in front of him now. Massive, alive, watching. For the first time in a long while, Lucian felt it. Doubt. What if there was only one seat? What if this time, he was nothing? He clenched his jaw and reached out. His hand hovered inches from the crystal. He could feel in the air, the pull, the breath of mana curling around his fingers like smoke. Lucian's heart thudded against his ribs. He had done this before, in another life. It had been chaos, flames, lights, glitching symbols, screaming mana. But now I didn't know if there would be anything at all. He closed his eyes. Let's get this over with. His hand touched the crystal. Nothing. No blast. No scream. Just silence. Then a small pulse. Soft, like a heartbeat. Then another. Then the crystal shook. A low hum grew into a vibration, deep in the floor and inside the air. A thrum of something trying to connect. Like gears grinding out a sink. The display above flickered. Then flickered again. It struggled. Then, name, Lucian Black. Ability, classification, rank. The entire hall leaned forward. The instructors frowned. Even Dean Garros took a slow step toward the platform, confused now. Lucian opened one eye. The display didn't say unknown. It didn't say failure. It said nothing. Not a single word appeared in the ability slot. Just long, flickering lines like data corrupted. The crystal glowed again, brighter, frantic, almost panicked. Then, a harsh screech burst out of it like radio static, and the entire screen shut down. The floating display turned black. A warning rune blinked faintly in red at the bottom corner. Indefinite. Lucian pushed the door open and stepped into the dim room. The light above buzzed softly. Mana circuits embedded in the walls gave off a faint blue glow. The room smelled of fresh linen, sealed wood, and the faint metal tang of mana purification runes. He didn't even bother taking off his boots. He just dropped onto the bed face first and stayed there. The mattress gave a tired whump, and the springs beneath creaked faintly as he rolled onto his back. One arm flopped across his face. Ow! That's all he'd been thinking since the ceremony. How did Evelyn awaken his ability? Wasn't awakening supposed to be soul deep? Something unique to the core of who you were. All the lectures, all the books, everybody said it. Your ability was yours. Buried inside, just waiting for the right spark to pull it out. But today, that rule shattered right in front of him. And now, he had nothing to show for it. Indefinite. Lucian chuckled weakly. It wasn't a happy sound. I really thought I'd be the one comforting her today. The ceiling stared down at him, cracked faintly near the corner. A bit of dust floated lazily past his face. He let out a slow breath. What if my ability really is garbage now? What if I came back, and I'm just empty? He closed his eyes. No, that couldn't be it. He refused to believe it. I'm not ready to watch Lucy die again. His voice was quiet, raw. He clenched his fist on the blanket beneath him. I'll do anything, even if I have to start over from zero. And then, the lights flickered. Mana circuits along the wall froze, then surged. Lucian sat up. What the? Then he felt it, like pressure being sucked out of the room. Air collapsing inward. Time slowing. And then, a soft ding echoed in his mind. And a voice. System initialization complete. Lucian blinked. System. A translucent blue screen blinked into view, floating gently in front of him. Welcome, Lucian Black. You have awakened. The infinite system. His breath caught. Lines of text scrolled slowly. This system contains no class, no restrictions, no limits. You have been granted infinite stat points. You have been granted infinite system points. You possess infinite mana. Lucian stared at the words. They didn't flicker. They didn't glitch. They were real. And then, the voice came again. But this time not flat. Not robotic. It had personality. Calm. Confident. Smooth. A little amused. Hello, Lucian. I'm your system. And before you ask, no, you're not dreaming. Lucian's heart was racing now. What are you? I'm the infinite system. A fully sentient progression interface built around your soul's return from a terminated timeline. Lucian's eyes widened. I'm not an ability. I am a construct. You did not awaken me from the crystal. I came back with you. Lucian stood from the bed now, breathing hard. Then why didn't the crystal say anything? Because it couldn't understand me. I am not within its limits. Your presence is anomalous, even to this world. Lucian ran a hand through his hair, still trying to process it. So, what do I even do with you? The screen shimmered. Would you like to open your status? He nodded slowly. Yeah. The screen changed. Status window, Lucian Black. Level 1. Title, Return 1. Race, Human. System type, Infinite. Mana, Infinity. Stat points available, Infinity. System points available, Infinity. Stats, Strength 10. Agility 10. Intelligence 10. Endurance 10. Perception 10. Luck 10. Lucian exhaled. This wasn't like before. Before, infinite replication was powerful, but it had to build. It had a structure, a limit. But this was something else entirely. No class, no form, just infinity. Why me? The system paused for a moment, then answered. Because you died, and you weren't supposed to. Because the timeline broke when you fell. Because now you're not just part of the system. You are the system. Lucian sat back on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. Evelyn awakened his old power. But this wasn't a downgrade. It was a rebirth. And now, He just had to learn how to use it. Lucian stared at the blue screen floating in front of him. Still, alive, real. He slowly brought his fingers up, hesitating just for a second before tapping on the part that said, Title, Returned 1. The screen pulsed once, then expanded. Title, Returned 1. Description, You are a soul out of time. A dead man walking the path twice. The world has changed around you, but you carry memories, pain, and purpose no one else can see. Effect 1. Timeline instinct. Instinctively sense key future turning points. Effect 2. Temporal echo. You retain 10% passive resistance to time-based abilities. Effect 3. Broken fate. You cannot be bound by prophecy, fate, or soul contracts. Effect 4. Locked. Lucian's eyes narrowed. His fingers curled slightly as he read through each line. Timeline instinct. Temporal echo. Broken fate. He laughed quietly. That last one's poetic. But his smile faded fast. That wasn't just a fancy description. That meant something. Something big. He couldn't be predicted. Couldn't be controlled. Not by the system. Not by fate. Not even by the world. And that meant he was free, but also meant he was alone in it. Lucian closed the screen, but before he could breathe again, a soft pulse rolled through the room, and the system spoke, based on host soul depth and prior experience, granting initial ability. Ability generation in progress. The blue screen turned deep violet, then started shifting. Patterns formed. Symbols blinked in and out like collapsing stars. Runes twisted and burned across the interface like etchings across a cosmic veil. Then, ability acquired. Space-time manipulation. Rank, SSS. Category, core type ability. Classification, reality layer control. Lucian's breath caught again. The screen shimmered and shifted into a detailed breakdown. Space-time manipulation. You have unlocked access to the interwoven layers of time and space. Reality bends at your command, not by force but by structure. Current functions unlocked. Fold step. Instantly blink across short-range distances up to 50 m. Temporal slow. Create a localized time delay field for up to 10 seconds. Spatial lock. Prevent movement or teleportation within a targeted zone. Chronosense. Perceive events up to 3 seconds into the future. Passive. Note, this is only the beginning. Evolution paths. Infinite. Lucian blinked. Twice. He stood from the bed slowly, his hands shaking just a little, not from fear. From the weight of it. He exhaled sharply and opened his palm. Mana pulsed through his body like something ancient had awakened from sleep. The air around him shimmered faintly, like the room didn't know if it wanted to hold still or breathe. He raised his hand just slightly, and the air tore. A black line opened in the middle of space, bending like someone twisted the edge of reality itself. Lucian stepped forward and appeared across the room in an instant. He didn't walk. He folded. Fold step, he whispered, then reached for the side table, and with a flick of thought, Chronosense activated. Time slowed. The dust particles floating near the lamp seemed to freeze. He blinked. Everything snapped back. His heart raced, but his breathing was steady now. This wasn't just overpowered. It was surgical. Lucian slowly sat back down on the bed, still letting it all settle. Space-time. His fingers curled. This wasn't like infinite replication. That was about cloning, copying, duplicating. This was about rewriting. The system didn't just replace what he lost. It gave him something he never had. Something beyond replication. Control. Of time. Of space. Of where things should be. And when. The infinite system didn't just want him to survive this time. It wanted him to reshape it. Lucian grinned now. The first real grin he'd worn since coming back. No limits. No bindings. Just infinite tools. And a world that didn't know what was coming. Lucian pushed the door open and stepped into the dim room. The light above buzzed softly. Mana circuits embedded in the walls gave off a faint blue glow. The room smelled of fresh linen, sealed wood, and the faint metal tang of mana purification runes. He didn't even bother taking off his boots. He just dropped onto the bed face first. and stayed there. The mattress gave a tired whump, and the springs beneath creaked faintly as he rolled on his back. One arm flopped across his face. Ow! That's all he'd been thinking since the ceremony. How did Evelyn awaken his ability? Wasn't awakening supposed to be soul deep? Something unique to the core of who you were. All the lectures, all the books, everybody said it. Your ability was yours, buried inside, just waiting for the right spark to pull it out. But today, that rule shattered right in front of him. And now, he had nothing to show for it. Indefinite. Lucian chuckled weakly. It wasn't a happy sound. I really thought I'd be the one comforting her today. The ceiling stared down at him, cracked faintly near the corner. A bit of dust floated lazily past his face. He let out a slow breath. What if my ability really is garbage now? What if I came back, and I'm just empty? He closed his eyes. No, that couldn't be it. He refused to believe it. I'm not ready to watch Lucy die again. His voice was quiet, raw. He clenched his fist on the blanket beneath him. I'll do anything, even if I have to start over from zero. And then, the lights flickered. Mana circuits along the wall froze, then surged. Lucian sat up. What the? Then he felt it, like pressure being sucked out of the room. Air collapsing inward. Time slowing. And then, a soft ding echoed in his mind. And a voice. System initialization complete. Lucian blinked. System. A translucent blue screen blinked into view, floating gently in front of him. Welcome, Lucian Black. You have awakened. The infinite system. His breath caught. Lines of text scrolled slowly. This system contains no class, no restrictions, no limits. You have been granted infinite stat points. You have been granted infinite system points. You possess infinite mana. Lucian stared at the words. They didn't flicker. They didn't glitch. They were real. And then, the voice came again. But this time not flat. Not robotic. It had personality. Calm. Confident. Smooth. A little amused. Hello, Lucian. I'm your system. And before you ask, no, you're not dreaming. Lucian's heart was racing now. What are you? I'm the infinite system. A fully sentient progression interface built around your soul's return from a terminated timeline. Lucian's eyes widened. I'm not an ability. I'm a construct. You did not awaken me from the crystal. I came back with you. Lucian stood from the bed now, breathing hard. Then why didn't the crystal say anything? Because it couldn't understand me. I am not within its limits. Your presence is anomalous, even to this world. Lucian ran a hand through his hair, still trying to process it. So what do I even do with you? The screen shimmered. Would you like to open your status? He nodded slowly. Yeah. The screen changed. Status window, Lucian Black. Level 1. Title, Return 1. Race, Human. System type, Infinite. Mana, Infinity. Stat points available, Infinity. System points available, Infinity. Stats, Strength 10. Agility, 10. Intelligence, 10. Endurance, 10. Perception, 10. Luck, 10. Lucian exhaled. This wasn't like before. Before, infinite replication was powerful, but it had to build. It had a structure, a limit. But this was something else entirely. No class, no form, just infinity. Why me? The system paused for a moment, then answered. Because you died. And you weren't supposed to. Because the timeline broke when you fell. Because now you're not just part of the system, you're the system. Lucian sat back on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. Evelyn awakened his old power. But this wasn't a downgrade. It was a rebirth. And now, he just had to learn how to use it. Lucian stared at the blue screen floating in front of him. Still, alive, real. He slowly brought his fingers up, hesitating just for a second before tapping on the part that said, Title, Return 1. The screen pulsed once, then expanded. Title, Returned 1. Description, you are a soul out of time. A dead man walking the path twice. The world has changed around you, but you carry memories, pain, and purpose no one else can see. Effect 1. Timeline instinct. Instinctively sense key future turning points. Effect 2. Temporal echo. You retain 10% passive resistance to time-based abilities. Effect 3. Broken fate. You cannot be bound by prophecy, fate, or soul contracts. Effect 4. Locked. Lucian's eyes narrowed. His fingers curled slightly as he read through each line. Timeline instinct. Temporal echo. Broken fate. He laughed quietly. That last one's poetic, but his smile faded fast. That wasn't just a fancy description. That meant something. Something big. He couldn't be predicted. Couldn't be controlled. Not by the system. Not by fate. Not even by the world. And that meant he was free. But it also meant he was alone in it. Lucian closed the screen, but before he could breathe again, a soft pulse rolled through the room, and the system spoke. Based on host soul depth and prior experience, granting initial ability. Ability generation in progress. The blue screen turned deep violet, then started shifting. Patterns formed. Symbols blinked in and out like collapsing stars. Runes twisted and burned across the interface like etchings across a cosmic veil. Then, ability acquired. Space-time manipulation. Rank, SSS. Category, core type ability. Classification, reality layer control. Lucian's breath caught again. The screen shimmered and shifted into a detailed breakdown. Space-time manipulation. You have unlocked access to the interwoven layers of time and space. Reality bends at your command. Not by force, but by structure. Current functions unlocked. Fold step. Instantly blink across short-range distances up to 50 m. Temporal slow. Create a localized time delay field for up to 10 seconds. Spatial lock. Prevent movement or teleportation within a targeted zone. Chronosense. Perceive events up to 3 seconds into the future. Passive. Note, this is only the beginning. Evolution paths. Infinite. Lucian blinked. Twice. He stood from the bed slowly, his hands shaking just a little, not from fear, from the weight of it. He exhaled sharply and opened his palm. Mana pulsed through his body like something ancient had awakened from sleep. The air around him shimmered faintly, like the room didn't know if it wanted to hold still or breathe. He raised his hand just slightly, and the air tore. A black line opened in the middle of space, bending like someone twisted the edge of reality itself. Lucian stepped forward and appeared across the room in an instant. He didn't walk. He folded. Fold step, he whispered, then reached for the side table, and with a flick of thought, Chronosense activated. Time slowed. The dust particles floating near the lamp seemed to freeze. He blinked. Everything snapped back. His heart raced, but his breathing was steady now. This wasn't just overpowered. It was surgical. Lucian slowly sat back down on the bed, still letting it all settle. Space-time. His fingers curled. This wasn't like infinite replication. That was about cloning, copying, duplicating. This was about rewriting. The system didn't just replace what he lost. It gave him something he never had. Something beyond replication. Control. Of time. Of space. Of where things should be and when. The infinite system didn't just want him to survive this time. It wanted him to reshape it. Lucian grinned now. The first real grin he'd worn since coming back. No limits. No bindings. Just infinite tools. And a world that didn't know what was coming. Lucian leaned back, still sitting on the edge of the bed. His breathing had steadied, but his mind was anything but calm. His fingers tapped lightly against his knee. System, he said finally, voice low but steady. What are you really? The screen pulsed in response. The voice returned, same smooth, confident tone. Almost casual now. Familiar. I'm a system born from paradox. Your death fractured time. Your return broke the script. I am the result. A manifestation built from your soul's refusal to stay erased. Lucian tilted his head. You're saying I made you? Correct. Not by intent, but by impact. You shattered the framework of this world. What was once a passive system became sentient, structured, and bound to you. He frowned. Why infinite, then? Why not just give me my old ability back? Because the old path led to failure. That one hit. Lucian looked down at his hands. So this time, you want me to win. This time, you're not meant to play within the rules. Lucian nodded slowly. He had 1,000 questions, but one burned louder than the rest. If I have infinite stat points and system points, then what's stopping me from becoming the strongest person in the world right now? The screen went silent for a second. Then, because power without path is collapse. Because structure still matters, even to infinity. To evolve from rank F to rank E, you must meet two conditions. 1. Raise all your base stats to the maximum limit of rank F. 2. Pass a trial of ascension unique to your existence. Lucian's eyes narrowed. So, I still need to earn it. Exactly. You are infinite, but infinity is built layer by layer. A new screen blinked into existence beside his status window. It showed a scale, ranks etched in glowing tears. Power rank scale, F, E, D, C, B, A, S, 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 S. Current, F rank base. Stat threshold, 100 each attribute. Trial status, not yet unlocked. Lucian let out a breath, part relief, part challenge. And here I thought I could just dump a few hundred points and become a god. You could dump 1,000,000. It would change nothing if you skipped the foundation. He chuckled. Strict system. Efficient system. Lucian leaned back again and stared at the ceiling. All right, what else can you do? Show me what I've got access to. The system's screen rippled, then expanded into a full display grid. System interface menu. Infinite system. Status window. Skills and abilities. System shop. Trials. Titles. Inventory. Blueprint archive. World logs. Locked. Legacy path. Locked. Dimensional anchor. Lucian blinked. That's a lot. You will grow into them. Not all functions are accessible yet. He pointed at the system shop. Let's start there. The screen shifted. System shop. Tier 1 access. Currency. Infinity system points. Minor healing elixir. X5. 10 SP. Basic storage ring. 30 slots. 100 SP. Common weapon voucher. F rank. 500 SP. Beginner spellbook pack. 750 SP. Manual. Mana reinforcement. F rank. 1000 SP. Locked items below. Advanced combat vouchers. Requires rank D. Elemental skill. Orbs. Rare. Requires rank C. Mythic gear blueprints. Requires rank B. Chrono break techniques. Requires rank A. Divine skill cores. Requires rank S. System forged relics. Requires legacy path. Lucian raised a brow. So, I've got infinite currency, but I can't buy most of this. Correct. Your current rank determines what you can wield. Power without readiness corrupts the user. You must grow into each tier. Lucian clicked his tongue, amused. You sound like a disappointed old master from Scroll. Would you like me to simulate an old man voice? He laughed. Don't push it. He scrolled through the shop a little longer. Eventually, he picked. Purchase confirmed. Minor healing elixirs, X5. Purchase confirmed. Basic storage ring. Purchase confirmed. Beginner spellbook pack. Purchase confirmed. Manual, mana reinforcement. The items shimmered into existence in front of him, glowing briefly before settling on the floor like summoned projections solidifying. Lucian picked up the ring first. Cold silver, embedded with a weak mana gem. Classic, he muttered, slipping it onto his middle finger. Next, he looked at the manual. Mana reinforcement. He tapped it. The book dissolved into light, streaming into his mind. He flinched. Lucian exhaled as the shadows faded from his hand. His mind was clearer now, focused. All right, he said, voice calm. Tell me about the other functions. Start from the top. The system responded with a low chime. Then the main interface shimmered and rearranged itself. Each tab hovered like a page torn from a glowing book. System interface menu. Infinite system. Status window. Skills and abilities. System shop. Trials. Titles. Inventory. Blueprint archive. World logs. Locked. Legacy path. Locked. Dimensional anchor. The system's voice returned. Calm. Collected. Still slightly amused. Titles. This section tracks and applies all unique titles tied to your actions, choices, or background. Some titles are passive. Others unlock secret benefits or interactions with the world. A new panel opened. Current titles. Returned 1 active. Lucian tapped it again, though he'd seen it earlier. The description appeared. Title: Returned 1. You're a soul out of time. A dead man walking the path twice. The world has changed, but you carry pain and purpose no one else sees. Effects: Timeline instinct. Sense important future moments before they occur. Temporal echo. 10% resistance to time-based skills. Broken fate. Immune to prophecy, fate manipulation, and soul binding. Locked. He leaned back. Still freaks me out that I broke something just by coming back. You didn't break it. You just refused to stay erased. Fair. Inventory. A spatial storage dimension linked to your system. Everything you acquire through the shop or system events is stored here. You can organize, expand, and retrieve items instantly. A grid unfolded, almost like opening a chest in a game. Inventory. Minor healing elixirs, X5. Beginner spellbook, Shadow Grass bound. Manual, mana reinforcement used. Storage ring, equipped. Lucian raised a brow. So I can store stuff in here and not need bags. Correct. You can also bind physical objects outside the shop by touching them and selecting store. He reached for a small mana crystal on the desk and tapped the new option hovering beside it. Store. The crystal shimmered, then vanished. Lucian opened the inventory again. There it was. Neat. Blueprint Archive, a function exclusive to the Infinite system. The Blueprint Archive allows you to record, store, and replicate structures, weapons, artifacts, and even certain skills, as long as you've seen them in detail or analyzed them firsthand. Lucian blinked. Wait, so I can copy something I've seen? Correct. If you analyze it long enough. The more complex the item, the longer the analysis. Once stored, you can recreate the item using system points, raw materials, or both. Note, this function grows stronger with higher ranks. The tab glowed softly. Right now it was empty. No blueprint stored. Lucian sat forward. His eyes sparked with interest now. So I could copy a legendary sword? Yes, if you've touched it, studied it, and reached a sufficient understanding. You could recreate it with perfect precision or evolve it. Your infinite system allows you to improve on what you copy. Lucian let out a slow whistle. All right, that's insane. He thought of the Hellflame blade his sister used. Could he record it one day? Forge again? Maybe even make something stronger? His fingers curled. That was a good feature. A dangerous one. World logs. This tab contains records of major events tied to your timeline. Not global news, not gossip. Only things that affect you. Lucian tilted his head. So, like a journal? More like a reflection. If you trigger a major shift in the world, or someone tries to interfere with your path, it will show up here. Over time, this will become a living map of your impact. He opened the tab. Only one entry sat there. Event log number 1, The Awakening. Evelyn Merton awakens infinite replication. Event mirrors your past life. A timeline deviation has been logged. Lucian stared at the line. His throat tightened a little. So it wasn't just coincidence. No, her awakening was influenced by residual echoes from your fractured timeline. Lucian nodded slowly. She's a branch. I'm the root. Exactly. Locked. Legacy Path. This tab will unlock when you reach rank XXX. The Legacy Path is your soul's true evolution line. It holds ancient forms, combat styles, and world-altering abilities tied to who you were and who you might become. Once unlocked, it cannot be changed. Lucian stared at the locked icon for a moment. So it's permanent? Yes. The Legacy Path chooses you, not the other way around. But it waits until you're ready. Got it. He be patient. He had to earn his place before touching something like that. Locked. Dimensional Anchor. This is the final feature. Only accessible after rank? The Dimensional Anchor allows you to stabilize your presence across realms, timelines, or parallel worlds. It becomes your tether, your core. Lucian didn't speak. He just listened. The system's voice slowed. When this anchor unlocks, you'll no longer just exist in one reality. You'll shape multiple. Lucian's fingers stopped moving. No jokes. No comments. He felt it. That quiet pressure behind those words. Sounds too big for me. Not yet. But soon. The screen dimmed, slowly folding the tabs back into the main interface. Lucian sat there, watching it fade. Everything was quiet now, except the low hum of the mana circuits in his walls and the faint pulse of the system behind his eyes. He stood up, walking over to the window again. Ashvale was still awake. A few lights were out. A few still burned bright. Somewhere in that mess was Evelyn. Somewhere deeper were secrets he hadn't touched yet. Like who brought him back, and why. Lucian reached up and placed a hand on the window pane. His voice was low. Not playing by the rules anymore, huh? The system didn't reply this time. Didn't need to. He closed his eyes. He wasn't infinite yet, but he was on his way, and nothing in this world, or the next, was ready. Elsewhere, the wind hummed quietly outside the train window as Evelyn leaned back in her seat, her eyes half-lidded. A soft chime came from her comm device. She tapped it. A familiar voice crackled through, warm, teasing. "Hey, just a heads up. When you get home tomorrow, Grandma's planning a full-blown celebration. So, prepare for hugs. A lot of them." Evelyn sighed, tilting her head against the glass. "Of course she is." A small smile pulled at her lips. The next morning came with golden sunlight bleeding through the windows, the smell of bread from the downstairs bakery riding the breeze, and the low hum of manna shielding, faintly crackling above the city rooftops. Lucian stood by the window, his bag half-zipped, boots already on, jacket slung over one shoulder. He sighed. "Again, I don't see why I have to stay at the academy," he muttered, more to the window than anyone else. "I'm literally 30 minutes away. I can just portal in or take the rail line if I really have to." "You're going." Lucy's voice came sharp from behind him, followed by the sound of her setting down a folded uniform on the bed. Lucian turned, narrowing his eyes. "You didn't stay at the academy." She crossed her arms immediately, waiting for that line. "Yeah, because I had to take care of you. You were barely 12 and still mixing up mana circuits with power sockets. If I left, you'd have probably set the house on fire or adopted a void cat or something." Lucian blinked. "Okay, first off, void cats are cool. They eat furniture, Lucian." He tried not to grin. "Only if you forget to feed them." She rolled her eyes and walked over to straighten his already folded uniform, smoothing the sleeves like a proper big sister. Her fingers lingered at the collar for a second, quiet. "I'm serious," she said. "Staying at the academy's not just about rules or formality. It's about being there. You'll make connections, learn fast, build real skills. I could do all that and still sleep in my own bed." She looked up at him, then tilted her head. "Yeah, but I won't be there to cover for you when you sneak out and blow something up by accident." Lucian blinked again. "What makes you think I'd blow something up?" She raised one eyebrow. "Just one." "Okay, maybe once," he muttered. "Twice. That second one was technically your fault. I was saving a bakery." They both fell quiet for a second, the tension thinning, replaced by the warmth of familiar arguments and the quiet buzz of a bond that had once been lost. Lucian looked down, voice softening. "I just don't like the idea of leaving home again." Lucy didn't smile, not fully, but her hand came up to ruffle his hair. "Lucian," she said gently, "you gotta leave sometimes, so you can come back stronger." That a quote from one of your old teachers? She smirked. "Nah, I made it up. Pretty good though, huh?" He chuckled. "Yeah, not bad." A beat passed. Then Lucy stepped back, clapped her hands once. "All right, no more moping. Gear up. I expect you to be at the academy gate in full uniform, boots shined, posture noble, and ego slightly inflated." "I'm not you." She pointed at him. "No, but you've got my blood. Try not to embarrass me." Lucian gave her a small salute, half serious, half smiling. No promises. As he slung his bag over his shoulder and stepped toward the door, he glanced back at her once more. Her back was to him, hands already rearranging things like she always did. And for a moment, just a heartbeat. He let himself smile. She was here. This time, she was still here. And he was going to make damn sure it stayed that way. Few minutes later, Lucian stood at the edge of the school gate, his hands in his pockets, his eyes scanning the crowd of students flooding into the academy courtyard. Laughter, chatter, mana flares. Everyone looked excited, or at least like they wanted to be here. He let out a long sigh, shoulders slumping slightly. "For years again," he muttered. Am I really doing this all over? The gate loomed ahead, tall, ornate, edged with enchantments that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. The crest of Ashvale Academy pulsed at the center, bright blue against stone. He took a step forward, but before his boot even touched the threshold, guess who? A familiar voice rang out behind him, light and playful. He didn't have to turn to know. Eve. Evelyn spun around him with a grin, her long hair catching the light, her uniform skirt fluttering just slightly as she came to stand beside him. She folded her hands behind her back and tilted her head, eyes dancing. You look like you were deep in thought. Or was that just your soul trying to escape again? Lucian gave a lazy shrug. Wasn't thinking about anything. Oh sure, nothing. She smirked. The kind of nothing that makes you stare dramatically at gates and question your life choices. He tried to hold back a grin. Failed. You're annoying. Thank you, she said brightly. She reached into her side pouch, pulling out 2 glossy envelopes, dark blue with gold trim, sealed with an elegant red wax stamp. Lucian raised an eyebrow. Evelyn handed them to him with a little flourish. Tada, official invites. He looked down at them, brow furrowing. What's this? My grandmother's throwing a party tomorrow at the Marin estate, Evelyn said, still grinning. Big fancy congratulations thing. Over the top, as always. And I want you and Lucy to come. Lucian blinked. You're inviting me to a high society event? Like willing? She gave a mock gasp. What? You think I'd go without you? I need someone there who actually understands sarcasm, and who won't try to flirt with every noble air in sight. He opened his mouth. Also, I already told Grandma you were coming. He blinked again. Of course you did. Evelyn leaned forward slightly, eyes locking with his. Don't ditch, okay? It's important to me. Lucian stared at her for a second, then nodded. All right, good, she said, stepping back with a satisfied nod. I'll send a carriage to your dorm just in case you get lazy and pretend to oversleep. I don't oversleep. Monsieur. She spun on her heel and started walking toward the academy building with a bounce in her step, waving one hand over her shoulder. Lucian watched her for a second. The 2 envelopes still rested in his hand, warm from the sun, neatly sealed. He looked at the gate again, then sighed. And we're really doing this. He stuffed the envelopes into his coat pocket and followed after her, his footsteps slow but steady. Soft thud. The space was small, clean, bare, impersonal. Just a bed, a desk, and a shelf. Mana lights hummed quietly in the corners, casting a dull glow across the walls. Outside, he could hear muffled laughter from other students settling in. He didn't care. He dropped his bag to the floor, kicked off his boots, and collapsed onto the bed with a tired grunt. In his hand, still crumpled from the walk, was the invitation from Evelyn. The Marin estate, the party, the high society. He held it up, staring at the golden trim, at the way the wax seal caught the light. Then he scoffed, quiet and bitter. When she awakened pedal steps, they ignored her, he muttered. Some even mocked her, said it was soft, weak. His fingers tightened around the envelope. But now that she's shown something rare, something they've never seen before, suddenly she's the family's pride. The future, a sensation. He tossed the invitation onto the nightstand. Hypocrites. Lucian sat up slowly, eyes burning, not with anger, but with something colder, sharper. Resolve. This world doesn't care about potential, doesn't care about heart. All it sees is power, and those without it. He clenched his fist. Get buried. He stood up, walking to the center of the room. His shadow stretched behind him under the pale mana light. I'll do everything in my power to become the strongest hunter. No shortcuts, no second deaths. If I'm going to walk this path again, I'll burn through it with my own hands. Then he spoke louder, clearer. System. The familiar screen blinked into existence. Yes, Lucian. I'm ready. Trial of Ascension initiated. A short pause. Then, confirmation received. Trial of Ascension. Rank F, rank E now initializing. The room pulsed faintly, mana lights dimming, replaced by a silvery glow spilling from the interface. But Lucian paused. Wait, before we do this. The system halted. Yes. Do you have a name? Another pause. No, I was never given one. Lucian tilted his head, thinking for a moment. The glow of the screen washed over his face as he smiled just a little. Can't keep calling you system all the time. He crossed his arms, then said quietly, Your voice sounds like clarity, like precision. You showed up the second I needed something to hold on to. He nodded to himself. How about Kale? A brief silence. Then the screen pulsed gently, almost warmly. Designation accepted. From this moment onward, I shall respond to the name Kale. Lucian smiled faintly. Nice to meet you properly, Kale. The feeling is mutual, Lucian. Then the interface brightened again. Trial environment now forming. Prepare yourself. Lucian stepped forward as the mana circle beneath his feet ignited. His shadow lengthened, distorted by the radiant light rising from the ground. And as the world around him began to shift, the faintest grin tugged at the corner of his lips. This was it. His next step. His rebirth wasn't just survival. It was conquest. And the name Lucian Black would echo far beyond these dorm walls. The light around Lucian exploded, soundless and blinding. And just like that, the room vanished. When all settled, he was somewhere else entirely. His boots touched stone. Cold, slick, ancient. The glow of the mana circle beneath his feet faded out, leaving only the flicker of torches nailed unevenly to the dungeon walls. They hissed with blue flame, cold fire, humming faintly like it wasn't meant to be touched. Shadows danced across the hallway, long and crooked, like they didn't belong to anything alive. Lucian took one step forward. The ground echoed, not once but twice, like something else had just stepped too. He froze, waited, but nothing came. He looked around slowly. The place was massive, carved straight into the bones of a forgotten world. Moss grew in the cracks of the ceiling above. Rusted chains hung from archways overhead, swaying slightly with no wind. In the distance, faint groaning sounds echoed through the stone like old voices trapped in walls. A whisper of a screen appeared before him. Welcome to the Trial of Ascension, Lucian Black. Environment, Hollow Dungeon, Tier 1 Test Site. Objective, survive and clear 3 floors of the Hollow Dungeon. Slay the Guardian of Floor 3. Ranking range of hostile entities. E-Class to D-Class. Warning, death within this space results in forced ejection and a 72-hour lockout before next trial attempt. You will retain knowledge. You will retain pain. Rewards upon success. Ascension to rank E. Stat cap increase. Lucian slowly exhaled as the rest of the text rolled in. Environmental conditions. Mana density, high. Creature hostility, active. Light source, unstable. Psychological interference, minimal. System monitoring, ongoing. A final line appeared. This trial adapts to your existence. It is not a test of strength. It is a test of readiness. Lucian stepped forward again, slower this time. The corridor before him stretched into a dark spiral, descending deep underground. The walls weren't clean. Claw marks, gouges in the stone, some still damp. Bloodstains dry, old, and blackened. He crouched for a moment, pressing 2 fingers to the floor. It wasn't just mana here. It was old battle essence. The type that lingered from real fights. People had died here. A lot of them. Kale, he muttered. Any hints? The screen flickered. No, you are on your own here. Just as I expected. Lucian stood again, then took his first real step into the dungeon. No fanfare, no music, just the sound of boots scraping against the hollow floor and the distant rumble of something waking up far, far ahead. The trial of ascension had begun. Hollow dungeon, first floor. The trial of ascension, Lucian Black. The moment Lucian stepped deeper, the dungeon shifted. It wasn't just the air, though that was colder now. It was the silence. Thick, watching, waiting. He walked slowly, controlled. Every footstep echoed like a heartbeat through hollow bones. Then it came. The first monster. It emerged from the corner of the corridor, twisted, pale, like a wolf that had been stretched too long, its spine cracking with each movement. Its jaw unhinged wider than it should, lined with rows of jagged, uneven teeth. Lucian's eyes narrowed. Let's test this properly. The creature leapt. He vanished. Fold step. Lucian blinked from his position, reappearing behind the beast midair, and drove his elbow straight into its neck. It crashed into the ground. It screeched, spinning unnaturally, but Lucian was already gone again. Another fold. Another angle. He danced through space like a shadow, out of rhythm. The monster slashed with its claws, slicing nothing but air. Lucian raised his hand and whispered under his breath, "Slow down." Temporal slow. The air shimmered. The creature moved, but not really. Its actions dragged like it was wading through molasses. Lucian circled it. Calm. Calculated. He flicked his wrist, and energy pulsed through the air, thick like glass snapping. Spatial lock. A cube of compressed space crushed down on the monster like a vice. Bones cracked. The creature shrieked. Lucian's hand pulsed with light. A simple blade formed from raw mana, blue, sharp, humming with distortion. One step forward. A clean slice. The creature fell, head severed, twitching in slow motion even in death. The lock faded. Time returned. Lucian stood over the corpse. Next. Floor 1, midpoint. The deeper he went, the darker it got. Not because of the torches. They still flickered with ghostly blue fire, but because the walls themselves began to breathe. They pulsed faintly, veins in stone, like the dungeon was alive. Lucian walked calmly. The weight of mana pressing down didn't bother him. He had infinite reserves. All that mattered now was pace. Flow. Then, he froze. The floor ahead split open. From the darkness rose 3 figures. Tall, armor of bone and black metal. No eyes, no mouths, only crackling blue cores embedded in their chests. They raised rusted halberds, each tip glowing faintly with cursed runes. Sentinels, Lucian muttered. Perfect. The one on the left charged. Lucian didn't blink. Chronos sense. The moment before the strike came, time split open in his mind. 3 seconds ahead. He saw the blade, the spin, the feint. He moved before it even began. Fold step behind it. Slice. Elbow. Knee. Metal crunched. The sentinel shattered into shards. The other 2 moved in tandem. Faster. Lucian leapt back, landing softly. He snapped his fingers. Spatial lock again, this time on the floor below them. The ground warped. One of the sentinel's legs buckled. It staggered just for a second. Enough. Lucian spun forward, dragged his foot along the floor, drew a circle mid-air, and flung it. Temporal slow, double layer. The field expanded like a bubble. Both sentinels froze mid-lunge. Lucian stepped into the field. A calm breath. 3 strikes, each at a different angle. Neck, core, back. He left the field. Time resumed. The sentinels burst apart. Dust settled. Lucian cracked his knuckles. Too easy. Floor 1, final gate. He reached a heavy door, covered in iron symbols, locked in place by a ring of energy. A screen blinked. Mini-boss. Corrupted beast caller, Class D+. Optional. Clear for bonus reward. Continue to floor 2 otherwise. Lucian smiled. I'm clearing everything. He pushed open the gate. Inside was a circular arena. Old, cracked, soaked in old blood. And standing in the center was a hunched creature. Massive, antlers of bone, chains wrapped around its limbs. Behind it, cages lined the walls. Dozens. Something moved inside each. The creature raised its head and howled. The cages exploded. Monsters flooded the arena. Of course. Lucian exhaled, rolled his shoulders, then vanished. Full step multi-bling mode. He zigzagged across the arena in seconds, striking, vanishing, striking again. Creatures howled and burst into blood mist. But they kept coming. The beast caller roared, and a wave of sound shattered the stone. Lucian dropped low, riding the shockwave like a surfer riding a tide. His hands lit with mana. He snapped both fingers. Spatial lock, arena compression mode. The walls of the room twisted inward. Space buckled. The enemies had less room to move. Then he raised his hand. Temporal slow, field cast. Everything slowed. Lucian began walking forward, slicing, stabbing, crushing. Time resumed, and the floor turned red. Now only the beast caller remained. It roared. Lucian didn't flinch. Chrono sense, full focus. He saw the roar before it left the throat. He stepped aside. A moment later, he was on its back. He gripped both antlers, flipped himself over, and brought a blade of compressed space into the beast's neck. It roared again. He didn't stop. Another slash. Another fold. Lucian appeared below it this time. He looked up. The beast reared to stomp him. He whispered, "Fall." Spatial lock, vertical inversion. The ground flipped for the beast. It screamed as it crashed upward, slammed into the ceiling like it weighed nothing. Lucian leapt, twisted midair, and drove his blade down as gravity restored. The beast hit the floor and didn't move again. Transition screen. Floor 1 cleared, rank S. Bonus reward unlocked, skill fragment, dimensional claw. Next floor unlocking. Lucian stood quietly. Blood dripped down his arm, but the mana around him remained calm. He looked up at the fading gate. "Bring the next one," he said quietly. Trial of Ascension. Continue to floor 2. The lights dimmed again. The circle beneath him spun, and Lucian disappeared into the next challenge. Hollow Dungeon, 2nd floor. The moment Lucian stepped onto the 2nd floor, the shift was immediate. The heat, the smell. The air wasn't cold anymore, it burned. Like every breath clawed down his throat. The stone under his boots sizzled faintly, etched with runes that glowed red, then dimmed like they were breathing. The torches on the walls weren't blue here. They were blood orange. Huh. Angry. Lucian narrowed his eyes. Fire zone. Aggression types. A screen blinked. Environment. Magma spire tunnels. Hostile profile. Flamebound. Tier DD+. Objective. Survive ambush waves. Locate the core room and slay the flame sentinel. Warning. High ambient mana compression. Spatial abilities affected. Fold step delay increased. Lucian's jaw tightened. "So you want me to bleed?" He walked forward. Not even 10 steps in, the walls erupted. 6 creatures burst from the molten cracks, slender, ember-skinned beasts with claws like obsidian hooks. Their faces were just masks of ash, but their eyes burned. They charged. Lucian's fingers sparked. Kale. Chronosense active. Fold step, ready. Delay plus 0.3s due to mana density. He blinked to the left, barely fast enough. One hook scraped his shoulder. Another slashed toward his face. Lucian ducked, kicked off the floor, spun midair, and threw out his palm. Spatial lock, cone mode. A burst of warped pressure shot out in a 30-degree cone, distorting the path of 3 enemies. They stumbled. Lucian didn't wait. He leapt, stabbed his blade into the neck of the first. Fold step to the next. Slash. Fold again. Elbow into the last's gut. They screamed, exploded into cinders. The remaining 2 lunged from opposite sides. Temporal slow, split cast. 2 bubbles appeared, small but perfectly timed. Both creatures froze mid-pounce. Lucian ran through them. No fear. Slice. Slice. Done. They turned to dust. He exhaled. The heat made sweat drip down his jaw. But the look in his eyes didn't change. Only sharpened. He pressed on. Mid-tunnel, 9 minutes later. Lucian ducked into a narrow path, then stopped. Something was wrong. Too quiet. No fire crackle. No breathing. Even the torches dimmed slightly. He stepped once, and the stone under his boot clicked. Trap. The wall to his left exploded. A massive creature slammed into him, sending him flying across the hall and through a column. He rolled up, coughing, blood trickling from his lip. D-class? No. Higher. The beast stepped out of the smoke. 10 feet tall. Skin made of molten rock. A face like a helmet forged in hell. Twin axes made of fused bone and flame. Lucian wiped his mouth. Hostile identified. Infernal Juggernaut. Tier D+, elite. The Juggernaut charged. Lucian's eyes flared. Chronosense, full focus. Time snapped into frames. He saw every step of the enemy's path. Every wind-up. Every break. Fold step, triple cast. He vanished, reappeared on the Juggernaut's shoulder, and drove his blade into its neck. Didn't work. Too thick. Lucian jumped off, spun midair, and summoned a sphere of space energy in his palm. Spatial collapse, critical point. The sphere exploded like gravity caved in. Chunks of the Juggernaut's arm cracked. It roared and swung wildly. Lucian ducked, then stood still, waited. The Juggernaut raised its arms for a crushing slam. Lucian whispered, "Fall." Spatial lock, vertical inversion. Once again, the monster flipped, slammed face first into the ceiling. Lucian dashed up the wall with a fold-step jump, met the Juggernaut mid-fall, and this time plunged his blade into the exposed throat. Crack! The core split. The body exploded in light and cinders. Lucian landed hard, knees bent. A slow breath followed. Elite kill bonus acquired. Fragment of flame core added to inventory. He smirked. That one was worth it. Final chamber, floor 2. The gate to the last room opened with a deep rumble. Lucian stepped into an enormous forge. Lava pits lined the floor. Chains hung from burning ceiling beams. And at the center stood a knight, 10 feet tall, wrapped in red gold armor. His eyes glowed behind a visor. His blade? A great sword of burning glass. Mini-boss, Flame Sentinel, Tier C dash. Lucian stood still, then cracked his neck. "All right, Kale. Ready when you are. Let's show them what I can really do." The Flame Sentinel raised its sword, and the room exploded into fire. Lucian ran straight through the flames, mana shielding his body. The sword came down. Lucian slid under it, stabbed at the leg, but the armor deflected it. Hard shell. He jumped back, dodged a horizontal slash that split stone. Temporal slow. Area cast. He darted inside the slowed world, landed 6 clean strikes to the back, before exiting the field. The boss turned. Too slow. Lucian fold-stepped onto a hanging chain, ran along it, flipped, and brought down a spatial blade toward the exposed gap in the neck. Sparks flew. The sentinel staggered. It swung back. Lucian caught the hilt of the blade, redirected it using a spatial twist midair, and kicked off the chest plate. Chronos Sense, Prediction Thread, 2.5s. He saw the follow-up before it came. Lucian summoned 2 overlapping space walls. The blade crashed, deflected. He didn't stop, dashed under the knight, placed his hand on the floor. Spatial lock, core compression field. A localized gravity seal formed beneath the boss, locking its movements. Limbs jerked. It growled, trapped for 3 seconds. Lucian used all of it, climbed up the sentinel's shoulder, drove both blades into the side of the helmet, then whispered, "End it." Dimensional claw, fragment activation. A spectral claw of blue-purple energy ripped from his hand, sliced through space, and tore through the core inside the armor. The sentinel erupted into flames. Lucian dropped to the floor, rolled, and stood. The armor collapsed behind him. Silent. Empty. Trial notification blinked. Floor 2 cleared. Rank S+. New reward. Dimensional claw fragment. Upgraded to full skill. Advanced to floor 3. Lucian didn't move. Just stood there, breathing, covered in ash and mana light. Then finally, he nodded. "Let's go." Hollow dungeon. 3rd floor. The moment Lucian stepped through the gate, the entire world changed. Wind. A deafening howl, sharp and alive, tore past his ears. The floor below was gone, replaced by crumbling ruins floating in a dark sky that shimmered with falling stars. Suspended platforms, glowing with ancient glyphs, hovered over a bottomless void. The air pulsed with mana. Every breath buzzed in his lungs. Above, clouds circled like a vortex. Lightning flickered deep within them, silver and violet, but never struck. The silence between flashes felt watchful. Lucian landed on the first platform, his boots sending a small shockwave across the rune-covered stone. He looked up. 3 more platforms ahead, and at the very center, a figure waited, massive, cloaked in violet-black robes that moved like smoke. It wore no armor, no crown, just a skeletal mask that hovered an inch from its face, held in place by some invisible force. Long arms hung at its sides, claws trailing trails of etheric flame. A name burned into Lucian's vision. Floor Guardian, Warden of Starlight, Tier B dash. Lucian exhaled once. B rank this early? Kale's voice echoed calmly. This is the true gate. Survive, and your body will be reborn into E rank. Fall, and your system will seal for 30 days. Lucian cracked his neck. Then let's dance. He dashed forward, leaping across the floating ruins. Mana surged through his legs. His shadow stretched behind him, pulled by the warping space between platforms. Fold step activated. He blinked forward, platform to platform, wind screaming past his ears. As he neared the third stone, a thin beam of violet light tore across the air in front of him, slicing clean through the ruin's edge. Lucian folded midair, reappearing just beside it. The moment he landed, the warden moved. No sound, no warning, just presence. It vanished from the center platform, then reappeared behind Lucian, its claw already swinging down. Chrono Sense auto-triggered. Danger proximity, critical. Lucian dropped low, slid under the strike. A crater of pure starlight exploded behind him as the claw touched stone. He spun, summoned a sphere of spatial distortion in his hand. Spatial collapse, Tier 1. He hurled it point blank. The sphere pulsed, imploded. The warden staggered back, cloak rippling violently. Lucian didn't pause. He leapt forward, both hands surging with energy. Dimensional claw, full activation. A pair of glowing, translucent claws burst from his arms, tracing overlapping arcs through the air. He slashed twice, one upward, one diagonal. The first tore into the warden's shoulder. The second grazed its mask. The air around him cracked. The warden screeched, its voice a chorus of dead stars. Lucian jumped back. Got you. But the warden didn't fall. It lifted both hands, and the world bent. The sky above shattered like glass, and hundreds of tiny fragments, each glowing with burning runes, rained down toward him. New skill detected. Starfall Cage, Tier B spell. Lucian's heart pounded. He launched into the air with a fold step, but one of the shards clipped his side. He twisted midair, wincing. Damage taken, moderate. Reinforcement stability, 64%. Lucian hit a platform and rolled, then slammed both palms into the stone. Spatial lock, zone cast. A dome of warped reality snapped up around him. The falling shards struck the dome, flickered, and vanished before impact. Starfall Cage neutralized, 10% mana drain. Lucian coughed. Kale status. Combat efficiency, 81%. Recommend limiting fold steps. Local space is thinning. Got it. The warden raised its arms again. Its cloak unfurled, revealing dozens of floating symbols spinning in circles around its core. Each one pulsed with light. Lucian recognized the flow. That's a summon. The sky opened again. Two figures dropped from above, hunched, jagged shadows wielding twin blades of crystallized starlight. Summons detected. Void Bind Knights, Tier C+. Lucian charged one before it hit the ground. His blade met the starlight weapon with a clang that shook the air. The knight didn't stagger. Lucian grit his teeth, pushed forward, and triggered, temporal slow, on just the knight's limbs. It twitched. He ducked under a slash and sent a spatial collapse directly into its chest. The knight cracked, then burst. One down. The second knight rushed him from the side. Lucian spun. Too slow. The blade caught his ribs, sent him flying into the wall of a hovering ruin. Blood ran down his side. Warning, damage 42%. Internal bruising detected. Lucian wiped his lip. Still not enough. He forced himself up, vision swimming, then threw his hand out. Dimensional claw, overdrive. The claw this time tore through space itself, leaving a hole in the air that dragged the second knight into it. A moment later, it reappeared above him, shredded in half, ejected from the collapsed rift. Lucian stood, swaying slightly. Then the real threat came. The warden floated forward. Its mask cracked, revealing a single violet eye beneath. The runes spun faster now. A low hum vibrated the dungeon. Final phase triggered. Starcore rebirth. Lucian blinked. Oh, come on. The warden plunged a hand into its own chest, ripped out a star-shaped core, and crushed it. Everything exploded. The sky, the ruins, the ground. Lucian was flung off his platform as golden-purple fire roared around him. Chunks of stone fell like meteors. Spatial rifts opened and closed in random patterns. Time jittered. The world was breaking. He slammed into a broken pillar, coughing up blood, one eye nearly swollen shut. He whispered through grit teeth, "Kale, I need something." The system pulsed. Accessing skill core. Dimensional claw. Mutation triggered. New skill unlocked. Dimensional rift drive. Lucian's aura flared. His body surged upward, light erupting from his veins as he launched forward with raw speed. The warden raised its claw. Too late. Lucian twisted midair. Die. Dimensional rift drive. Spear mode. He launched forward like a bolt through space itself, slamming straight into the warden's chest. The entire mask shattered. The cloak ripped open. The warden screamed. And then, silence. Its body unraveled. Faded. Lights scattered across the broken sky. Lucian landed hard. Dropped to one knee. Sweat poured down his face. Blood dripped from his arms. He looked up, panting. A screen floated into view. Trial of Ascension. Floor 3 cleared. Rank S++. Congratulations. Ascension to rank E complete. New title earned. Rift Walker. Core attributes unlocked for custom path selection. Lucian didn't smile. Not yet. He just breathed. Slow. Heavy. Alive. Then, he looked up at the sky as the ruins faded around him. Light overtaking the world. He whispered, "One floor at a time. Things are different this time." "What makes you say that?" The voice drifted in like a breeze, soft, smooth, but laced with weight. Lucian turned. She walked into the hall with calm steps. Long dark hair tied back, sharp violet eyes that held no warmth, just clarity. Her coat fluttered behind her, as if the air itself knew better than to touch her. She didn't look rushed, didn't look tense. She was exactly how he remembered her. Instructor Athena. Lucian's smirk pulled at the corner of his mouth. He remembered that walk, that gaze, the way she held herself like a storm waiting for permission to break loose. In his past life, she was a monster in the field, the kind of instructor no one wanted to spar with, the kind no one wanted as an enemy. Her ability could have rivaled mine, back when it was still mine. Now, that absurdly broken power belonged to someone else. His eyes flicked to Evelyn, who was stretching her fingers absently beside him, still unaware of what exactly lived inside her now. Lucian exhaled. "Nothing," he said, eyes back on Athena. "Just talking to myself." Athena stopped in front of 5 of them. Her gaze passed over each one, slowly, deliberately. She said nothing for a few seconds. Then, "You're the ones they pulled out of the standard route. The ones who broke the scale." Silas scratched his cheek and grinned. "Guess we're special." Athena blinked once. "If by special, you mean dangerous, then yes." Silas blinked. Rhea smirked. Evelyn tried not to laugh. Vin didn't move. Lucian stood straight, hands in pockets. He didn't interrupt. Athena's voice remained calm, but it echoed across the wide training hall like a whip slicing the air. "My name is Athena. I'm your handler, instructor, and problem solver for the foreseeable future. I'm not your friend. I'm not your enemy. I don't care where you're from or what trauma made you strong." She looked at Lucian briefly, just a second too long to be casual. "I only care about 2 things. 1, can you survive what's coming? And 2, if you can't, will your body be useful to teach the next person?" That shut everyone up. Lucian's smirk deepened slightly. Same old Athena. She paced once in front of them. "You'll train apart from the others. Your curriculum will be personalized. You'll be sent on live missions far sooner than your peers. And the people above don't expect all of you to last." She stopped again. "So prove them wrong." Silas nodded, cracking his knuckles. Rhea crossed her arms, focused. Evelyn straightened her shoulders. Vin just stared at the floor. Lucian tilted his head, watching Athena closely. Athena took a breath and finished. "Class 0 begins tomorrow. 5 a.m. sharp. Gear up, get rest, and don't be late." She turned to walk away, then added over her shoulder, "Oh, and one more thing." They all looked up. "If any of you hold back." She paused by the door, her tone colder now. I'll break that habit. Personally. Athena took 2 more steps toward the door, then paused. Right. She turned back around, hands sliding into her coat pockets. Her eyes swept over them again, this time less sharp, more assessing. Follow me. No further explanation. She pivoted on her heel and started walking down the hallway. Her steps were silent, but somehow every one of them echoed. Lucian exchanged a glance with Evelyn, who shrugged. Silas was already moving, practically bouncing with curiosity. Rhea trailed close behind, and Vin didn't say a word, just followed. Lucian walked last, hands still in his pockets, his gaze fixed on Athena's back. Still as intense as ever. But I wonder what else changed. They didn't go the same direction as the others. Not toward the West Wing dorms where the rest of the students had been herded earlier during orientation. Instead, Athena led them to the far side of the academy. The halls got quieter, older. The walls here weren't polished metal or glass. They were stone, marked with strange runes, half-faded over time. After several minutes, Athena stopped in front of a tall, arched gate. It looked ancient, black steel laced with silver threads, and a glowing crest in the middle. A crest none of them had seen before. She placed a hand against the center. The crest pulsed once, and the door opened with a deep hiss, revealing a wide chamber beyond. This wing's been sealed off for over 10 years, Athena said, stepping aside. But it's yours now. They stepped through one by one. Silas whistled. Whoa! The place was massive. The hallway beyond opened into a circular atrium. Floors of obsidian polished, so clean they reflected light like water. Pillars lined the edges, carved with symbols none of them could read. On the far end were 5 doors, each marked with a glowing glyph. Lucian looked around slowly. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't cozy, but felt right, like it was made for people who didn't fit anywhere else. Evelyn touched the wall lightly, her eyes scanning the runes. These used to belong to hunters, Athena replied, just like you. They were the first class 0, back when the world was on fire, and the academy was more battlefield than school. She didn't say what happened to them. She didn't need to. Rhea narrowed her eyes. So, this is more than just special treatment. Athena nodded. It's responsibility. She motioned to the doors. Each one's linked to your system. They'll adjust automatically to your abilities. You'll find combat sims inside, personal libraries, training zones. But it's your space now. Own it. Silas stepped toward his door. The glyph on it flickered, then shifted into a symbol shaped like a gauntlet. Cool. Vin's door showed a thorn moon crest. She didn't react. Reyes? A fan of mirror glass. Evelyn's glowed with a strange fractal, geometric, infinite. Lucian's door pulsed last. His symbol looked like a broken spiral. Fractured space coiled into itself. He stared at it for a second longer. Athena clapped her hands once. You've got the rest of the day to settle in. Tomorrow morning, training starts. No excuses. She started walking away again, but paused at the gate. One more thing. They all turned. Whatever you see here, whatever you experience, don't compare it to the rest of the academy. She met Lucian's eyes for a heartbeat. Class 0 isn't here to fit in. Then she left, this time without turning back. The gate slowly closed behind her with a low, final thud. Silence settled between the 5 of them. Silas broke it with a laugh. Guess this is home now. Rhea shook her head. Let's see how long we last. Vin was already walking to her door. Evelyn looked at Lucian. You okay? Lucian nodded once. Never been better. Then he was gone. The door shut behind him with a slow, echoing click. Silence followed, until Silas broke it with a lazy laugh. Well, guess we're all freaks, huh? Rhea rolled her eyes. Please don't talk. Lucian exhaled through his nose. Not a laugh. Not quite annoyance either. Vin still said nothing. Her gaze was on the wall, like she wasn't fully here. Evelyn turned slightly, looking at Lucian. I assume you're just as surprised as I am. Lucian finally spoke, low and casual. Yeah. Then I still on Vin, he added. Things are different this time. I hate parties like this. If Evelyn didn't invite me personally, I would have just stayed in my dorm, Lucian muttered, standing at the front steps of the Marin family estate. The estate was massive, grand archways, polished marble walls, and glowing lanterns hanging in the evening air like stars captured in glass. Music drifted from inside. Laughter, footsteps, voices too refined to feel real. "Quit brooding," Lucy said, swatting the back of his head playfully. "You're ruining the mood for me." Lucian shot her a look. "This is the kind of place where people notice you," she said, spinning once to show off her sleek black dress. "Socializing, building connections, maybe even finding a sponsor or two. This is where you should be, genius." "I don't need connections," Lucian replied flatly. "I'm fine just the way I am." Lucy rolled her eyes. "That's exactly what someone without connections would say." Lucian walked ahead without answering, pulling the folded invitation from his coat. He handed it to the gatekeeper, a tall man in formal wear, half his face covered with a silver mask. The man looked at the seal, then at Lucian, then handed it back with a nod. "Welcome to the Marin estate. The party is through the garden hall." He stepped aside. Lucian entered first. Lucy handed hers over with a proud grin, then followed behind her brother, heels clicking on the cobblestone path as they walked through the wrought iron gate. The garden was unreal, trees trimmed into spiral shapes, manna-lace petals floating in the air. Lanterns hung between the branches, glowing soft gold. There were clusters of people in elegant robes and modern formal wear, all talking, laughing, sipping shimmering drinks. Everywhere Lucian looked, he saw eyes watching, measuring, whispering. This is a show, a ceremony dressed as a celebration. Lucy leaned close. "Don't glare at everyone like you're hunting them. You'll scare the nobles." "I'm not glaring," Lucian said. "You're absolutely glaring." He sighed. Still, he kept walking, eyes scanning until he saw her. Evelyn. She stood near the fountain, surrounded by well-dressed guests, her hair tied up with a jeweled pin and her dress a soft crimson that shimmered as she moved. There was poise in the way she stood, but he saw it, the stiffness in her shoulders, the polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She caught sight of him, and for a second, the mask slipped. She smiled, real this time. Lucian nodded back, subtle. Lucy nudged him. "You should go talk to her." "You go." Lucy raised a brow. "I'm not the one she invited." Lucian hesitated. Then he walked toward Evelyn. The crowd parted slightly as he moved, eyes following him. Not many knew who he was, but some recognized the uniform, the symbol on his chest, the mark of Class 0. He stopped a few steps from her. "You clean up nice," he said. Evelyn let out a soft laugh. "You showed up. You asked." She tilted her head. "And if I hadn't, I'd be in bed," Lucian said, healing, avoiding noise. "Well, I'm glad you're here. For what it's worth." Lucian glanced at the other guests, then back to her. "You don't look like you're having fun. That obvious?" Lucian shrugged. "You're good at smiling, but your eyes are screaming." She smiled anyway. "I guess I'm still getting used to all this. Being noticed." Lucian said nothing for a beat. "Then, they ignored you before. Now they see value. That doesn't make them right." Evelyn's smile faded slightly, but her eyes warmed. "Thanks," she whispered. Before either of them could say more, a servant approached with a tray. "Miss Evelyn, Lady Marin wishes to speak with you in the West Garden." Evelyn nodded. "Tell her I'll be right there." The servant bowed and walked off. Lucian stepped back a little. "Go," he said. "You'll be okay. I'm not going to explode." She smirked. "Well, try not to." Then she turned and walked away, red dress trailing behind her like a slow flame. Lucian stood there for a moment, then turned, only to find Lucy already talking with a noble girl near the wine table, laughing like she belonged here. Lucian walked past her and found a quiet corner under a tree, out of the light, away from the noise, just where he liked it, but his eyes stayed on Evelyn. A few minutes later, Lucian leaned against the tree trunk, arms crossed, eyes half-lidded as the music played on. The air smelled like roses and manna dust. He didn't care for either. The laughter, the distant sounds of clinking glasses and forced small talk, it all blurred together. He tilted his head, just slightly. Evelyn was still in view, barely, disappearing into the path toward the West Garden. Then he heard them. He groaned softly before even looking. "There you are." Lucy's voice, bright, teasing, too energetic. He turned his head just in time to see her skipping up the steps toward him, a trail of silk, lace, and perfume behind her. 3 girls followed, one with silver hair and round glasses, another in a low-cut green gown, and a last with sharp makeup and a fan she clearly didn't need. "This is my brother," Lucy said with a grin that was way too proud. "Lucian, Class 0. You've probably heard of him." The girls lit up like someone had spilled glitter on the grass. "You're the Lucian?" Glasses girl said, pushing her frames up. "I heard you beat a spectral chimera in one blow." Green dress added, eyes wide. "Is it true you got into Class 0 without any backing?" The girl with the fan asked, fanning herself faster. Lucian didn't move, didn't blink. He just stared. "I was just trying to stand here," he muttered. Lucy giggled and gave him a small shove. "Come on, entertain them for like 5 minutes. I'm trying to look good here. I'm not a zoo exhibit." "You're worse," she whispered with a grin. "You're a mystery." Lucian sighed. "Hard." Still, he nodded slightly toward the girls. "Thanks for the flattery, but I really don't do autographs or fantasy tales." The girls giggled anyway. One of them actually blushed. Lucy beamed. "See? You're already winning hearts. Now." But she stopped. They all did. Because then, from the other side of the garden, just past the arched hedges where the lantern light dimmed, a voice, sharp, panicked. "Let go of me." Everyone near the hedge froze. Lucian's body moved before his mind caught up. The noise, the clink of glasses, the laughter, the low strings of the quartet, all fell away. Evelyn, her voice, shouting. Lucian's hand dropped to the side of his coat where his dagger usually sat. It wasn't there. He cursed under his breath. The girl stepped back. Lucy looked up at him, confused. Lucian, but he was already gone. Feet silent on stone, eyes burning through the dark, cutting across the garden like a shadow unchained. And the night suddenly stopped feeling safe. A few minutes earlier, the west garden was quieter than the rest of the estate. Less light, more space. The flowers here didn't glow. They swayed gently under the moonlight. The wind smelled like cold mint and white blossoms. Evelyn stood near a marble railing overlooking a koi pond, the soft ripple of water the only sound in the silence. She sighed quietly. The noise of the main event felt far away, like it belonged to another world. This part of the garden was hers for a moment, until footsteps echoed behind her. Slow, confident. She turned, and her smile faded the moment she saw him. Garrick Thorne. His black suit was pressed tight across his broad shoulders, and his dark blonde hair was brushed back like it always was, like he was performing for an invisible audience. His smile? Practiced. Eyes? Cold. Too cold for a party. "Evelyn," he said, hand in his pockets, strolling like he owned the grass. "Didn't think I'd find you alone." She straightened. "That's because I wasn't trying to be found." He laughed softly. "You used to be warmer than this. Before your awakening. That was before I realized who I was really talking to." Garrick's smile twitched, just a little. "I just want to talk," he said, stopping 2 feet away from her. "Old friends. Like the academy days. Remember? We were never friends," Evelyn said, stepping back. Garrick tilted his head. "You're saying that now because you've got attention. Power. But we both know that won't last. You're new money, new blood, and people like you burn bright for a moment." Evelyn's jaw clenched. "And people like you are born thinking they own the flame." His eyes narrowed. "You think Class 0 will protect you? That weird boy you're always around. Lucian, right? What did he charm you into feeling safe?" "Lucian's twice the man you'll ever be," Evelyn said. That was the last crack. Garrick's hand shot out, grabbed her wrist hard. She gasped. "Let go." "You're lucky I'm even talking to you," Garrick said, stepping closer. "The Mara name doesn't make you untouchable." She tried pulling away. "I said, let go." And that's when Lucian arrived. His coat snapped behind him as he sprinted through the hedges. He moved without noise, without hesitation. 1 second Evelyn's voice had been shouting. The next, Garrick's hand was raised. Lucian's fist landed on his jaw before Garrick even saw him coming. Crack! Garrick flew back, landing hard in the flower bed. Evelyn gasped as Lucian stepped between them. Lucian's eyes didn't blink, didn't move, just locked on Garrick like a wolf who'd found its prey. Garrick groaned, blood trickling from his mouth. What the hell? Lucian didn't answer. He walked. One slow step, then another. Garrick scrambled to his feet, spitting. You're dead. He reached into his coat. Lucian raised a hand. Chronos sense, instant activation. Garrick moved. Lucian moved faster. His hand caught Garrick's wrist mid-reach, then twisted. Crack! Garrick screamed. Lucian shoved him back against the garden wall. You think touching her was okay? Lucian said, voice low. She's not even. Lucian's knee slammed into Garrick's ribs. Garrick collapsed again, wheezing. Lucian crouched beside him. I don't care who your family is. I don't care what your bloodline does. You touch her again. He leaned close, voice flat. And I'll end the thorn line myself. Evelyn stood frozen. Lucian looked back at her. You okay? She nodded slowly, her voice shaking. Yeah, he came out of nowhere. I didn't expect. You don't need to explain. Lucian turned back to Garrick, who was now crawling away on his elbows. Run back to your father, Lucian said. Maybe he can buy you some new teeth. Garrick spat blood, but didn't speak. He vanished into the night, like a rat scurrying back into its hole. Lucian watched until the footsteps disappeared. Then, finally, he let out a slow breath. The garden was silent again. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice softer now. Thank you. Lucian looked at her, then shook his head. I didn't do it for thanks. Evelyn smiled faintly. You always say that. She looked at the place where Garrick had fallen. Her hands were still shaking a little. Lucian reached out, took one of them gently. It's over, he said. Evelyn looked up at him. And for a second, there was no party. No academy. No class 0. Just the two of them under the stars, in a garden too fancy for either of them. She leaned her head against his shoulder. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just let her breathe. Let her feel safe. But deep inside, Lucian's thoughts were already somewhere else. This wasn't the last threat. Not by a long shot. Inside the Marin mansion, the music still played softly beyond the velvet curtain halls. Laughter floated from the ballroom, where nobles danced and clinked crystal. But here, inside one of the private lounges at the back of the estate, the mood was very different. Garrick Thorn paced, a drink untouched in his hand. His jaw was slightly swollen, the right side of his lip still stained with dried blood. His eyes were storming, burning with something between rage and humiliation. That bastard, he growled, slamming the glass down on the table. Not hard enough to break it, but just enough to spill. He humiliated me in front of her, in front of everyone. Sitting across from him was a tall man dressed in black robes, with a silver clasp shaped like a thorned rose. The man had long gray hair tied back in a loose tail and wore thin-framed lenses over cold, yellow eyes. His presence was quiet, but commanding. Master Aldrich, Thorn family representative, a known enforcer in the political underground. He didn't look up from the book he was slowly flipping through. You grabbed her, Aldrich said, voice low and unimpressed. Garrick tensed. She disrespected me. She's just some Marin offshoot with a broken ability that somehow evolved into a spectacle. I was trying to claim her. Aldrich interrupted, still not looking at him. Like a prize. Garrick turned sharply. You're supposed to be on my side. Aldrich closed the book. Finally looked up. I am. Which is why I'm telling you to calm down. Garrick opened his mouth, but Aldrich raised a finger, and the room instantly felt colder. You let your ego lead. That's weakness. That's not how we operate. Garrick's face tightened. But, Aldrich continued, voice smoothing again, what you said is not wrong. She's just a girl with a new spotlight. And the boy, a sly smile pulled at his lips. Lucian, Garrick clenched his fists. He's not even backed by anyone. No name, no clan, no legacy, just power, raw power, which is the most dangerous kind, Aldrich said, because it can't be predicted or controlled. He stood slowly, hands folding behind his back as he moved to the window, looking out at the moonlit garden. You want revenge. That's fine, but don't do it like a child in the schoolyard. Do it like a thorn. Let the pressure build. Let him walk into the trap himself. Then we remove him. Garrick nodded slowly, his breathing steadying. But Aldrich added, we'll do it on my time. He turned slightly, the gleam in his eye unreadable. and I'll enjoy watching him squirm. Elsewhere, near the upper lounge, another figure had been listening. Dean Garros stood by the bar, a half-finished drink in his hand, leaned against the wall like a man enjoying the evening, but his ears had picked up everything. He didn't react, not outwardly, but a small smirk tugged at his lips. So they've already started plotting, he thought. Not even 24 hours since the term began. He took a sip, eyes half-lidded. Lucian, a student with no political background, no clan, no noble name, just an anomaly, an unknown. He wasn't on any family ledger, wasn't picked by any patron, and yet, Garros saw what most others didn't. He remembered watching the crystal during the awakening exam when Lucian touched it, and it didn't stop glowing. Infinite. That was the word it whispered. The system had registered a value no one could measure. The AI had flagged it. But Garros, instead of suppressing it or rerouting the data, had quietly erased the anomaly alert. He knew the risk, the weight of letting someone like Lucian walk free. And yet, let them try, he muttered under his breath. He turned away from the bar, coat swaying slightly behind him. If he warned them, if he placed a mark on Lucian's name, the boy's path would soften. The threats would die down. And without pressure, a sword never sharpens. Lucian wasn't just a student. He was a possibility, a storm waiting to define its shape. So Garros made his choice. He would not interfere. Not yet. Let the heirs test him. Let the families provoke him. If Lucian was as strong as the system hinted, he would survive, grow, adapt. And when the time came, when the game grew too dangerous to ignore, only then would Garros step in. From the shadows. Not to save him, but to unleash him. Class 0, he said quietly, eyes gleaming. You're already stirring the balance. The music still played softly beyond the velvet curtain halls. Laughter floated from the ballroom, where nobles danced and clinked crystal. But here, inside one of the private lounges at the back of the estate, the mood was very different. Garrick Thorn paced, a drink untouched in his hand. His jaw was slightly swollen, the right side of his lip still stained with dried blood. His eyes were storming, burning with something between rage and humiliation. That bastard, he growled, slamming the glass down on the table. Not hard enough to break it, but just enough to spill. He humiliated me in front of her, in front of everyone. Sitting across from him was a tall man dressed in black robes, with a silver clasp shaped like a thorned rose. The man had long gray hair tied back in a loose tail and wore thin-framed lenses over cold, yellow eyes. His presence was quiet, but commanding. Master Aldrich, Thorn family representative, a known enforcer in the political underground. He didn't look up from the book he was slowly flipping through. You grabbed her, Aldrich said, voice low and unimpressed. Garrick tensed. She disrespected me. She's just some Marin offshoot with a broken ability that somehow evolved into a spectacle. I was trying to claim her. Aldrich interrupted, still not looking at him. Like a prize. Garrick turned sharply. You're supposed to be on my side. Aldrich closed the book. Finally looked up. I am. Which is why I'm telling you to calm down. Garrick opened his mouth, but Aldrich raised a finger, and the room instantly felt colder. You let your ego lead. That's weakness. That's not how we operate. Garrick's face tightened. But, Aldrich continued, voice smoothing again, what you said is not wrong. She's just a girl with a new spotlight. And the boy, a sly smile pulled at his lips. Lucian, Garrick clenched his fists. He's not even backed by anyone. No name, no clan, no legacy, just power, raw power, which is the most dangerous kind, Aldrich said, because it can't be predicted or controlled. He stood slowly, hands folding behind his back as he moved to the window, looking out at the moonlit garden. You want revenge. That's fine, but don't do it like a child in the schoolyard. Do it like a thorn. Let the pressure build. Let him walk into the trap himself. Then we remove him. Garrick nodded slowly, his breathing steadying. But Aldrich added, we'll do it on my time. He turned slightly, the gleam in his eye unreadable. And I'll enjoy watching him squirm. Elsewhere, near the upper lounge, another figure had been listening. Dean Garros stood by the bar, a half-finished drink in his hand, leaned against the wall like a man enjoying the evening, but his ears had picked up everything. He didn't react. Not outwardly, but a small smirk tugged at his lips. So they've already started plotting, he thought. Not even 24 hours since the term began. He took a sip, eyes half-lidded. Lucian, a student with no political background, no clan, no noble name, just an anomaly, an unknown. He wasn't on any family ledger, wasn't picked by any patron, and yet, Garo saw what most others didn't. He remembered watching the crystal during the awakening exam when Lucian touched it, and it didn't stop glowing. Infinite. That was the word it whispered. The system had registered a value no one could measure. The AI had flagged it, but Garo's, instead of suppressing it or rerouting the data, had quietly erased the anomaly alert. He knew the risk, the weight of letting someone like Lucian walk free. And yet, let them try, he muttered under his breath. He turned away from the bar, coat swaying slightly behind him. If he warned them, if he placed a mark on Lucian's name, the boy's path would soften. The threats would die down. And without pressure, a sword never sharpens. Lucian wasn't just a student. He was a possibility, a storm waiting to define its shape. So Garo's made his choice. He would not interfere. Not yet. Let the heirs test him. Let the families provoke him. If Lucian was as strong as the system hinted, he would survive, grow, adapt. And when the time came, when the game grew too dangerous to ignore, only then would Garo step in. From the shadows. Not to save him, but to unleash him. Class 0, he said quietly, eyes gleaming. You're already stirring the balance. The next day, the morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of dew-soaked stone and old iron as Lucian and Evelyn walked through the academy gates. The sun was only just beginning to rise, painting the sky in pale golds and gentle blues. Students moved around them in quiet clusters, still half asleep, robes rustling against the paved walkways. Lucian kept his hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed but eyes sharp as always. His uniform jacket was unbuttoned at the top, tie loose around his neck. He didn't care about appearances, only about what came next. Beside him, Evelyn walked in silence, clutching her satchel to her chest. Her hair was tied up in a simple ponytail today, her bangs framing tired eyes. She hadn't slept much after last night's party. Neither had he. You okay? Lucian asked, voice low and casual. She blinked, glanced at him, then gave a small smile. Yeah, just nervous. Don't be that easy for you to say. Lucian shrugged. No, it's not. That made her laugh softly. The sound was small, a flicker of warmth in the morning chill. They walked the rest of the way to the training grounds without another word. The Class 0 field was different from the standard training arenas. It wasn't tiled or polished. It was raw ground, hardened dirt and stone surrounded by reinforced mana barriers. Marks from old battles scarred the earth. Blade cuts, craters from impact spells, burned lines from elemental clashes. Silas and Rhea were already there. Silas was stretching his massive arms behind his head, grinning like a wolf. Rhea sat on a rock nearby, checking her wrist brace with quiet focus. Vince stood at the far edge of the field, silent as always, her long hair drifting in the breeze. Athena stood in the center, waiting. She wore her standard instructor uniform today, black combat slacks tucked into shin-high boots, a dark vest over a sleeveless turtleneck, and her hair tied back in a single braid that fell down her back like a black whip. Her eyes, sharp and violet, tracked each student as they entered. When Lucian and Evelyn stepped onto the field, Athena spoke. You're late. Lucian raised an eyebrow. We're early. Athena's gaze flicked to the rising sun, then back to him. If you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. Lucian gave a small smirk. Noted. Evelyn bowed her head slightly, murmuring, Sorry, instructor. Athena ignored the apology, turning away to address all 5 students. Welcome to your first lesson as Class 0. Her voice carried across the field, calm, but with an edge that made silence sharpen around her. You're here because you're exceptional, because you're dangerous, because the people above me and above them don't know what to do with you yet. She let that hang in the cold air for a moment. But that doesn't mean you're strong. She walked slowly in front of them, boots crunching on gravel. Strength isn't just power. It's not your rank. It's not your mana type. It's not even your system. Strength is what's left when your advantages are stripped away, when your confidence fails, when your body gives out. She stopped and turned to face them. That is what we're going to find out. Silas cracked his knuckles, eager. Rhea stood up straighter, gaze locked on Athena with laser focus. Vin remained silent, unmoving, her face blank. Evelyn shifted nervously beside Lucian, who only rolled his shoulders back, loose and ready. Athena continued. Today we start simple. She gestured to the far end of the field, where 6 training drones hovered alive, rune cores flickering awake. Each was shaped like a humanoid silhouette, crafted from alloy and embedded with mana channels that glowed faint blue. Each drone is calibrated to E-rank combat specs. Your goal is to disable them as efficiently as possible. Use your abilities. Use your heads. If you rely only on your awakened gifts, you'll die in real combat. Her eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of a smile at the edge of her lips. Lucian, you're up first. He didn't hesitate. Stepped forward, hands sliding from his pockets. The other stepped back, giving him space. Athena watched him carefully, her arms folded across her chest. Begin. The drones activated instantly, their rune cores pulsing as they spread out, weapons forming from condensed mana. Spears, blades, reinforced shields. Lucian's eyes flickered once. Chronosense, passive-active, time bent at the edges of his perception. Every movement, every hum of the drone's mana fields, every shift of weight under his boots sharpened into focus. He stepped forward. The first drone lunged with its spear. Lucian tilted his head just enough to let it skim past his ear, grabbed the shaft with his right hand, and twisted. Metal creaked under his grip. He snapped the shaft in half, drove the broken spearhead upward into the drone's chest, and folded behind it before it exploded into flickering runes. Another drone swung its blade horizontally. Lucian folded low, reappearing beneath its guard, and slammed his palm into its rune core. Mana crackled, overloaded, and the drone shut down instantly. 2 others rushed him in tandem, one shield bashing forward while the other aimed a thrust at his exposed side. Lucian stepped back, just a single step, then vanished. Fold step, instant. He reappeared above them, both hands forming glowing spectral claws. Dimensional claw, twin cast. The claws tore down, ripping through their rune cores with perfect precision. Both drones fell apart in synchronized silence. The last 2 came at him together, their weapons drawn in defensive cross-formation. Lucian smiled faintly. He raised his hand, fingers curling inward. Spatial collapse, targeted core implosion. A faint sphere of distorted space formed in his palm, then shot forward, embedding itself between the drones before imploding. Space bent inward violently. Their cores compressed, overloaded, and shattered in unison. Silence returned. 5 drones lay motionless on the ground. The 6th was still in Lucian's grip, its core flickering as he slowly released it, letting it drop with a soft clang. Athena's eyes narrowed, her lips twitching upward by a fraction of an inch. She spoke quietly. 5 seconds. Full disables. No wasted movements. Lucian rolled his shoulder once and walked back to his spot in line, eyes calm. Evelyn stared at him, wide-eyed. Silas whistled under his breath. Holy shit. Rhea adjusted her wrist brace, gaze flicking between Athena and Lucian thoughtfully. Vin just watched him, expression unreadable. Athena turned her gaze to the others. Next, and as the sun rose fully above the academy walls, the first lesson of Class 0 truly began. Silence settled after Lucian stepped back into line, the mana smell of ruptured drones still hanging heavy in the cold morning air. Athena didn't say anything. She only flicked her eyes to the next name on her tablet. Silas. Step forward. The big boy grinned, stretching his shoulders back until his joints cracked. His uniform blazer was open, showing thick forearms wrapped in mana compression bands. He stomped once onto the dirt, shaking out his legs before rolling his neck. Been waiting for this, he said under his breath, voice like gravel grinding in a barrel. The drones reactivated, 6 of them aligning again as their rune cores pulsed blue-white. Athena gave a simple nod. Begin. Silas didn't waste a moment. He launched forward with a short burst, his boots digging trenches into the dirt as he slammed his fist straight into the first drone's chest. Crack! The alloy bent inward like aluminum foil. The rune flickered and shut down immediately. Another drone swung its spear at his head, but Silas ducked low, grabbed the metal shaft mid-swing, and ripped it out of its grip with brute force. The drone staggered. Silas swung the spear in a wide arc, smacking the drone so hard it spun twice before shattering into mana fragments. 2 more approached him from the sides, weapons raised. Silas roared, his voice echoing across the field as his muscles swelled slightly under his uniform. Enhanced condition, physical amplification active. He threw himself between them, taking a blade slice across his shoulder without flinching, then slammed both drones together with an explosive clap of his palms. Their rune cores collided, overloaded, and burst into sparks. The last 2 drones tried to retreat, repositioning for tactical defense. Silas didn't let them. He picked up one of the broken drones by its leg and hurled it like a club, smashing it into one drone and sending both sprawling onto the dirt. He charged forward, jumping high, and dropped a heavy axe kick down onto the final drone's head, crushing its rune core completely. Silence again. Dust drifted around him in slow spirals as he turned back to Athena with a grin. 6 down. Athena scanned the field, her eyes unreadable. 9 seconds. Excessive force. 0 technique. But effective. Silas laughed, rubbing the blood off his cut shoulder with his thumb. Hey, it works. Step back. He obeyed, still grinning, chest heaving with adrenaline. Athena looked down at her tablet again. Rhea exhaled softly, adjusting her wrist brace once more. Her eyes flicked to Silas for half a second before she stepped forward. Compared to the heavy footfalls of Silas and the silent, precise steps of Lucian, hers were light, barely stirring the dust. The drones activated in formation. Athena raised a brow. Begin. Rhea closed her eyes. A flicker of mana drifted around her temples, light gold in color. Telepathy, combat mind link active. Enhanced intellect, calculation field initiated. She opened her eyes again, and they were glowing faintly. The drones moved, almost as if sensing her activation, but she was faster. She raised her left hand and snapped her fingers. In the same moment, the first drone lunged forward. Rhea ducked under its strike in a perfect 36-degree angle shift, palm striking its rune core with pinpoint accuracy. Mana pulsed from her fingertips, interrupting the energy circuit instantly. It shut down before it could even finish its attack. Another drone swung at her from behind. She bent backwards, her hair sweeping across the dirt as the blade cut empty air above her. She pushed off her back foot, twisting midair, and delivered a sharp kick to the drone's neck joint, breaking its structural balance. She landed and pressed 2 fingers into its rune core. The drone flickered, then shut down. She spun, eyes scanning the remaining 4 drones. Mana circuits flickered in her eyes, reading each movement frame by frame. The 3rd drone fired a mana bolt from its arm cannon. Rhea reached out and redirected the shot with a slight tap, deflecting it straight into the chest of the 4th drone, disabling it instantly. She moved to the side, palm striking the 3rd drone's chest twice in rapid succession, rupturing its rune core. The last 2 drones charged together in a spear and shield combination. Rhea inhaled, flicking her wrist brace to tighten it. She sidestepped the spear thrust, pivoted, and delivered a sharp, precise palm strike to the back of the drone's knee joint, forcing it to kneel. She then pressed her palm against its head and released a compressed mana burst. Crack! It collapsed. The final drone raised its shield to defend, but Rhea didn't attack it directly. Instead, she threw a faint strike to its left side. The drone reacted, shifting its guard, and in that half-second window, she slid under its arm and drove her fist up into its rune core. Silence returned as the drone powered down. Rhea exhaled softly, pushing her bangs away from her glowing eyes as the circuits dimmed. Athena spoke, her tone neutral, but her eyes betraying a flicker of approval. 15 seconds. No wasted energy. Minimum force, maximum output. Excellent analysis. Rhea bowed slightly and stepped back beside Silas, who gave her a playful thumbs up. She ignored it, eyes distant in thought. Athena turned. Then, the silent girl stepped forward, her black and gray robes drifting lightly as she moved. Her long hair trailed behind her like shadows on water. The drones reactivated, humming softly. Begin, Athena said, then raised her right hand, fingers spread open. Mana swirled around her palm like ink dissolving in clear water. Magic manipulation, ether weave active. She closed her fingers slightly. The air around her shifted. The first drone lunged, but before it could reach her, a wave of shimmering violet mana lashed out like a whip, slicing its arm clean off at the elbow joint. She flicked her wrist, and the whip coiled around its neck, compressing until the rune core flickered and dimmed. Another drone fired a mana bolt, then drew a sigil in the air with 2 fingers, and the bolt froze mid-flight, then disintegrated into glittering motes. She moved her hand again, forming a second sigil that pulsed dark red. The ground beneath the 2 approaching drones warped, forming spikes of condensed mana that shot up, impaling their legs and pinning them in place. She flicked her wrist again. The spikes shattered upward, destroying both rune cores at once. The last 3 drones circled her, forming a defensive triangle. Vin's expression never changed. Her fingers wove intricate symbols into the air, mana forming chains that wrapped around the drones' limbs and necks, tightening until their rune cores compressed under the pressure. The last drone struggled violently, but she didn't even look at it. With a small squeeze of her hand, the chains constricted further, snapping its core. Silence fell. Athena's gaze hardened slightly. 21 seconds. Overuse of mana constructs. Your control is impressive, but your output is inefficient. Refine it. Vin bowed silently and walked back to stand beside Rhea. She didn't even glance at Silas, who looked genuinely unnerved by her display. Finally, Athena turned to Evelyn. Step forward. Evelyn swallowed hard. Her hands trembled as she tightened them into fists. She stepped onto the field, her red hair tied back in a low ponytail. Her eyes flicked to Lucian for half a second. He nodded once, slow and calm. She faced the drones. They activated, rune cores glowing. Begin. Evelyn raised her hands, trying to focus. Mana flickered around her palms in uneven bursts. Infinite replication. Status undefined. The first drone lunged forward. Evelyn moved to dodge, but stumbled slightly. The spear grazed her arm, leaving a thin cut across her uniform sleeve. She gasped, pain flaring hot under her skin. The drone pulled back for another strike. Lucian's eyes narrowed, but Evelyn gritted her teeth, raising her hands again. The mana flickered more violently now, like a spark trying to ignite. The drone lunged again, and this time, just before it struck, a flicker. For half a second, an exact duplicate of Evelyn appeared in front of her, taking the strike before shattering into mana fragments. The drone staggered back, confused by the sudden replication. Evelyn's eyes widened. What was that? The drones regrouped and charged together. Evelyn raised her hands again, and multiple flickering images of herself blinked in and out of existence, confusing their targeting systems. But the mana flickered unstable, and she couldn't hold the replications long enough to attack. Athena raised a hand. The drones froze mid-strike. Stop! Evelyn fell to her knees, gasping, sweat dripping down her temple. Her mana flickered out, leaving her exhausted and shaking. Athena's voice was cold. You don't know what your ability does. Evelyn swallowed hard, tried to catch her breath. And no, not fully. Athena sighed softly. Stand up. Evelyn forced herself to her feet. Athena's eyes were sharp, but her voice softened by a degree. You have power, but until you understand it, it will kill you before your enemies ever get the chance. Evelyn lowered her head, silent. Athena turned back to the class. That's enough for today. You're dismissed. Lucian walked over to Evelyn, offering his hand. She took it without a word, her fingers cold and trembling in his. You did fine, he said quietly. She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. I don't even know what I am anymore. Lucian squeezed her hand gently. Then find out. That's why we're here. As they walked back to the dorms, the sun climbed higher over the academy towers, its light harsh and unfeeling. But for a brief moment, with Lucian beside her, Evelyn felt like she wasn't alone in its glare. The walk back to the dorms was quiet at first. The sun had risen properly now, casting long, sharp shadows across the academy's training fields. Mana lights flickered off as daylight took their place. In the distance, standard rank classes were gathering for their own drills. The murmur of hundreds of students spread across the grounds like morning mist. Lucian walked a few paces ahead, hands in his pockets, coat fluttering lightly with each step. Evelyn walked beside him, clutching her satchel to her chest. Her eyes were distant, still reeling from what had happened during her turn. Rhea walked quietly behind them, eyes down, thinking about her performance and what needed refining. Vin moved in silence at the rear, head lowered under her long hair like she was walking alone. Then, of course, there was Silas. He strode in the middle of the group with wide steps, arms swinging, grinning like a kid who had just beaten a video game boss. Hey, he said suddenly, his voice deep and echoing over the path. That was some crazy move back there, Lucian. Lucian didn't turn his head, didn't even acknowledge him. Silas continued anyway, his grin unbothered. Seriously, that spatial claw thing was insane. And the way you folded between those drones, like he gestured wildly with his big hands, like some ghost or something. Man, I wish I had spatial abilities. Stop it, Silas, Reyes said, her voice quiet but sharp. Silas looked at her, confused. Stop what? I'm just saying. You're too loud, she said without looking up, and you're bothering him. Silas blinked, then laughed, scratching the back of his neck. How am I bothering him? I'm giving him a compliment. Just stop, Rhea muttered, but Silas didn't. He turned back to Lucian, still smiling wide. Hey, you think you're the strongest in Class 0 now, huh? Is that it? He chuckled, elbowing Lucian's arm lightly, though Lucian barely moved. Don't get me wrong, man, you're strong. Strong as hell. But I'm telling you, enhanced condition isn't just muscles. My dad always said there's no ability better in a straight fight. I mean, come on, speed, reflex, power, endurance, all boosted at the same time. I could punch a hole through a tank if I wanted. Lucian still didn't answer. Silas tilted his head, his grin faltering a little. Hey, you listening? Lucian's eyes flicked sideways, sharp and cold, just for a moment before facing forward again. That brief glance made Silas shiver a little, but he quickly shook it off with a forced laugh. Man, you're so damn quiet. You're the type that's always thinking, right? Always analyzing everything. Or he just doesn't like you, Reyes said softly. Silas turned to glare at his sister. What's your problem today? You're my problem, Rhea replied without emotion. Silas clicked his tongue, then turned back to Lucian, his grin returning stubbornly. Anyway, like I was saying, if we really want to see who's strongest in Class 0, we should just fight it out. He puffed his chest out, flexing his arms. Hand to hand, no abilities, just fists and skill. No abilities? Vin's voice cut through the conversation like a blade through silk. Silas flinched, looking back. Vin was staring at him, her long hair swaying as she walked, her violet eyes unreadable. That wouldn't be fair, she said calmly. Silas frowned. Why not? Makes it equal. Vin tilted her head slightly, strands of her hair falling over her pale cheek. Equal for who? You're enhanced. Your ability is physical amplification. Even if you're not using mana actively, your body is fundamentally stronger. That's not a fair fight. Silas opened his mouth, then closed it again. Well, yeah, but if you want to test who is the strongest amongst us, Vin continued softly, her voice almost whispering but somehow carrying across the group, then it should be done with our true powers. Otherwise, it's meaningless. Silence fell. Evelyn looked between them, her grip on her satchel tightening. Lucian kept walking, his eyes on the academy dorm tower ahead, its shadow stretching toward them like a beckoning hand. Rhea sighed. She's right. Silas scratched his head, looking awkward for the first time. So, what, we just fight for real? Right now? Not now, Vin said, her eyes lowering. But soon. It will be necessary to understand our hierarchy before live missions begin. Instructor Athena will likely force it regardless. Silas grinned again, his confidence returning like a tide. Then I'm in. Whatever. I'll take any of you on. He glanced at Lucian. Even you, quiet ghost. Lucian finally spoke, his voice low and careless. Whatever you want. Just those 3 words, but they carried an edge that silenced Silas immediately. The bigger boy blinked, then chuckled under his breath, rubbing his nose awkwardly. Evelyn looked at Lucian, her eyes worried. You shouldn't fight him, she said softly. And there's no point. Lucian didn't answer. He just kept walking, eyes half-lidded, the morning breeze lifting the ends of his black hair. Rhea watched him for a moment, then turned her gaze forward. Whether there's a point or not doesn't matter, she said, almost to herself. It's already been decided. They walked in silence the rest of the way. The Class 0 dorm building was smaller than the main dorm towers. Only 5 floors, with wide balcony corridors on each level overlooking the training fields. The interior was darker, older, the halls lined with mana-conductive stone to withstand training mishaps. It felt less like a student dorm and more like a combat barrack. They entered the lobby together. The mana lamps buzzed softly overhead, casting faint blue light across the stone floor. A bulletin board near the stairwell displayed their timetables for the week, along with Athena's simple note in clean script. Train, sleep, repeat. Silas chuckled when he saw it. She's not wrong. Rhea ignored him, scanning the timetable with quick eyes before heading upstairs without a word. Vin followed silently, drifting like a shadow down the dark corridor toward her room. Evelyn lingered beside Lucian, her hands clutching her satchel straps. Are you going to fight them? She asked quietly, her voice almost drowned by the low hum of mana generators in the walls. Lucian didn't look at her. If they make me. Why? His eyes flicked to her, calm and dark. Because it's easier to show them once than argue forever. Evelyn lowered her gaze, silent. Her chest felt tight in a way she couldn't describe. She wanted to say more, to tell him that he didn't need to prove anything, that he was already strong, that he didn't need to be alone at the top. But the words caught in her throat. Instead, she just nodded. Okay, she whispered. Lucian turned away, walking down the hall to his room. His boots thudded softly on the stone, echoing down the empty corridor. He didn't look back. Evelyn watched him go until the shadows swallowed him. She stood there for a moment, alone in the lobby, listening to the faint hum of mana circuits vibrating through the walls. Then she turned and walked to her own room, her footsteps quiet against the cold stone floor, her thoughts louder than any shout. Outside, the morning sun rose higher over the academy towers, casting long beams of light across the training fields. Students gathered, drills began, and life resumed in the fortress city that birthed hunters. Evelyn walked slowly through the dim corridor of the library annex, the leather strap of her satchel digging into her shoulder. Her eyes burned from hours of reading mana theory, bloodline records, and old hunter journals. None of it helped. Infinite replication. That was what Athena called it. But no book explained what that meant. There were replication arts, duplication illusions, and mimic spells, but none were infinite. Her ability didn't fit into any known type. She exhaled softly, stepping out into the wide stone corridor lined with tall glass windows. The morning sun poured through them, golden and silent, illuminating drifting specks of dust. Then she felt it, a cold presence. She didn't even need to look up to know who it was. Garrick Thorne stood there, leaning against a pillar with one leg crossed over the other, arms folded, head tilted just slightly as he watched her with those cold gray eyes. His uniform was crisp as always, a silver pin of House Thorne gleaming on his chest. Well, If it isn't the Academy's favorite pity project, he said softly, his voice curling around each word like a blade sliding from its sheath. Evelyn kept her head down, trying to walk past him. He moved instantly, stepping into her path, forcing her to stop. Her heart thudded hard against her ribs, anger and fear mixing like poison in her veins. "Move, Garrick," she said quietly. He smirked, tilting his head as he pretended to look thoughtful. "Move? No, I don't think I will. You know, I've been thinking about you a lot since the party. Since that night." She stiffened. Her fingers tightened around her satchel strap. Garrick's eyes darkened, the smile fading as anger flickered behind his gaze. "Do you think you're something now, Evelyn? Just because you're class 0? Just because you got that boy to fight your battles for you?" "Leave me alone," she said, trying to step to the side. He moved with her, mirroring her step perfectly. "You think class 0 makes you untouchable?" he whispered. "That boy, Lucian, right? He's not always going to be around. And when he's gone, you'll still just be Evelyn Marin, little nobody girl from a third branch family." "Garrick, stop it," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't want to do this." "But I do." His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist hard. She gasped, wincing at the pain as his fingers dug into her skin. "You're going to listen to me," he hissed. "You're going to remember who you were before all this. Before class 0. Before your pathetic little awakening." She tried to pull back. "Let me go." He tightened his grip, pulling her closer until their faces were inches apart. His breath smelled faintly of mint and bitter manatonic. "No," he said softly. "Not until you learn some respect." Her heart raced so fast it made her dizzy. She tried to yank her arm away again, but he didn't budge. Tears stung her eyes as anger burned through her chest. "Stop, just stop, please." Garrick laughed, low and cruel. "What's wrong, Evelyn? Don't you have your little clone trick? Why don't you use it on me? Let me go." He ignored her, his other hand reaching up to grab her chin roughly. "That's right," he said, smirking. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." And then something snapped. The fear, the trembling, the tears, it all burned away in a single breath, leaving only cold, blinding fury. Her hand shot up, grabbing his wrist so hard his smirk faltered instantly. "What?" Her eyes glowed, faint silver as mana surged through her veins. A flicker, a pulse. Something shifted deep inside her chest, like a lock clicking open for the first time. Ability replication, lightning descent, permanent acquisition. Garrick's eyes widened. "Why, how did you?" She didn't answer. Her body moved on its own, reacting to his instinctive flinch as he tried to pull back. Mana crackled around her legs, bright white arcs crawling up her skin with sharp electric snaps. Then she vanished. A loud crack tore through the hallway as Evelyn reappeared behind him in a flash of lightning. The stone floor scorched where she had stood, the scent of ozone filling the corridor. Garrick stumbled forward, his wrist released, eyes wide with shock. She turned slowly, hair drifting in the residual static. Her breathing was ragged, her eyes glowing faintly as arcs of electricity licked her arms and legs. He spun to face her, his expression twisted with confusion and rage. "How did you do that?" "That's my ability. That's lightning descent. That's a Thorn bloodline skill. You can't just." She stepped forward, her footfalls silent despite the sparks flickering under her boots. "Don't touch me again," she said softly. Garrick grit his teeth, his hand trembling as mana gathered along his skin. "You!" He lunged at her, fist crackling with lightning. Evelyn didn't move, didn't flinch. She simply raised her hand and, in the same instant, disappeared again with another deafening crack of thunder. She reappeared beside him, her palms slamming against his chest. The force wasn't enough to injure him, but the burst of electricity that exploded from her touch sent him sprawling across the corridor, crashing into a bookshelf with a loud bang. Ancient tomes rained down on his head as he lay gasping, stunned by the current still dancing across his nerves. Silence fell. The mana lights flickered above them as Evelyn stood there, her breathing ragged, static curling through her hair and shimmering around her fingers. Garrick groaned, trying to sit up, but his arms gave out. His hair stood in wild spikes from the static, his eyes wide with terrified disbelief. She looked down at him, her chest rising and falling with each shuddering breath. "Don't come near me again," she whispered. He didn't answer. Couldn't. His limbs twitched weakly, his eyes glassy. She turned away. Her knees felt weak, her head spinning as the mana settled back in her veins, the arcs fading into faint glimmers before disappearing completely. She stumbled a little as she walked away, one hand clutching her satchel strap, the other still trembling with leftover voltage. But for the first time since her awakening, Evelyn felt something deep in her chest that wasn't fear. It wasn't power, either. It was understanding. Replication, it's not just copies. Her eyes burned with quiet tears as she stepped into the sunlight streaming through the far windows. I can take what's theirs, make it mine, forever. She exhaled shakily, her hair drifting across her cheek in the cold morning breeze seeping in from the library's outer arches. Behind her, Garrick Thorne lay crumpled on the marble floor, staring at the ceiling with blank, terrified eyes. And Evelyn Marin walked away, lightning still echoing faintly in her veins, her steps silent against the stone as she disappeared into the rising sun. Because for the first time, she wasn't running away. She was walking towards something. The silence of the annex corridor was broken by the distant echo of running footsteps. Minutes passed. Garrick's ragged breaths came in shallow bursts, his chest trembling with each inhale. The acrid scent of burned ozone still lingered, mixing with the old leather smell of fallen books around him. His limbs twitched as residual voltage flickered faintly across his skin. A shadow fell over him. "Found him," a voice said softly, calm and clipped. Two academy medics approached, both in white mana-stitched coats with blue trim and Small Hunters Academy insignias pinned to their collars. One kneeled beside Garrick, checking his pulse with gloved fingers while the other quickly scanned his body with a glowing crystal tablet. "Mana burn, minor nerve shock. No cardiac damage," the kneeling medic reported, eyes narrowing at the reading. "But he's unresponsive. Get him to the infirmary," the other ordered, tapping the tablet to sync his condition to the internal network. "We'll run a cognitive scan once his vitals stabilize." They moved with quiet efficiency. Within moments, Garrick's limp body was lifted onto a mana stretcher that hovered 2 inches above the floor, glowing blue under his weight. As they guided him down the corridor, the books he'd knocked over lay scattered like fallen feathers, pages fluttering under the breeze of their passing. At the far end of the hallway, Dean Garros stepped out from behind a marble archway, his robes trailing softly against the polished stone. His hands were folded behind his back, his stern gaze fixed on the stretcher as it approached. Under the morning light streaming through the windows, the thin lines at the corners of his eyes seemed deeper today. The medics stopped and bowed their heads quickly. "Dean Garros, what happened?" His voice was calm, but there was steel buried under the softness. "Unknown, sir," the scanning medic replied. "We found him collapsed here. Mana residue readings show lightning-based energy, high voltage, rapid discharge, likely inability strike. But there's also unfamiliar energy traces." "Unfamiliar?" Garros raised an eyebrow. The medic nodded. "It doesn't match Garrick's registered mana signature. It's similar but not the same. It's like his energy was mirrored or copied, but the structure is subtly altered." The dean was silent for a moment, staring down at Garrick's unconscious form. His robes shifted softly as he turned away, eyes narrowing in thought. "Take him to the infirmary. I will handle the report." "Yes, sir." The medics moved swiftly, guiding the stretcher away down the long corridor, their footsteps echoing off the high glass windows. Dean Garros remained standing, listening to their retreating sounds until the hall fell silent again. He closed his eyes, exhaling softly. First Lucian, now Evelyn. His mind replayed what he'd read in her early awakening records. Undefined ability, unstable replication signature, unknown ceiling. He remembered how the assessment mages argued to reclassify her as unfit for Class 0. Yet something in him told him otherwise. Something instinctive, almost prophetic. He opened his eyes again, staring out the window at the academy grounds beyond. Morning drills were underway in the eastern courtyards, where dozens of new hunter trainees practiced stance work under a rising sun that turned their sweat into glittering mist. Infinite replication, he thought, the words echoing quietly in his mind. He chuckled once under his breath, a low, humorless sound. What a ridiculous ability, he whispered to himself. This year's class 0. Just how broken are they going to be? He turned, his coat flaring slightly around his legs as he began walking back down the corridor. His footfalls were silent despite his heavy boots. Behind his calm eyes, calculations ticked away, political implications, power dynamics, training schedules. But deeper than that, buried in a place he rarely acknowledged, was something sharper. Anticipation. Lucian, Evelyn, Silas, Rhea, Vin. One by one, he pictured their faces, their potential, their instability. 5 irregulars, 5 anomalies. Each one with enough raw potential to reshape the entire hunter world if guided properly, or destroy it if left unshaped. He paused at the junction leading back to his office. For a moment, he glanced back down the empty library corridor, golden light slanting across the polished stone. Evelyn Marin, he thought. You don't even know what you are yet, do you? A faint smile tugged at his lips before it vanished. He turned away and walked on, his robes sweeping behind him in quiet grace. Let them be challenged. Let them bleed. Only then will their true nature surface. I will intervene only when their lives are at risk. Anything less will only blunt their fangs. Outside, a breeze rustled through the academy gardens, carrying the scent of mana-infused blossoms. Birds perched along the roof tiles, singing softly to a sun that rose ever higher. The world kept moving, and in its quietest corners, Class 0's story continued to unfold, like silent lightning hidden within a clear sky, waiting for the moment it would shatter everything. Thorn Estate. The wide hallways of Thorn Manor were silent, lined with towering glass windows overlooking trimmed black pine gardens. Moonlight filtered through silk curtains, casting rippling shadows across the marble floors. 2 guards in black formal uniforms stood at the far doors, spears held upright, their expressions blank as statues. Inside the study, the scent of burning sandalwood drifted lazily in the air. A brazier flickered at the corner, its coals glowing orange and quiet. The walls were lined with shelves holding relics, spell scrolls, and weapon plaques, a testament to centuries of Thorn prestige. At the center of the room sat a man in a high-backed chair, turned away from the door to face the massive window overlooking the estate grounds. The moonlight framed him in silver, illuminating long dark hair streaked with gray at the temples. His posture was straight, his shoulders broad, even in stillness. One leg was crossed over the other, polished shoes catching faint reflections from the floor. In his right hand rested a half-empty glass of amber liquor, untouched for the past hour. Aaron Thorn, patriarch of House Thorn. A quiet knock at the door broke the silence. "Enter," he said without turning. The door creaked open, and a slim man in a gray-tailored suit stepped in, bowing deeply. His white gloves glowed faint under the lanterns, and a thin pair of spectacles sat low on his nose. "Patriarch Thorn," the man spoke softly. "The report, as you requested." Aaron didn't move. His eyes remained fixed on the moonlit grounds beyond the glass, where rows of pine trees swayed under the night breeze like silent soldiers. "Speak." The attendant cleared his throat, holding up a black tablet engraved with a thorn sigil. Mana circuits pulsed across its frame as he scrolled down. Earlier today, young Master Garrick was found unconscious in the Academy's library annex corridor. He suffered mild nerve trauma and mana burn consistent with high-voltage elemental discharge. A flicker of reaction crossed Aaron's eyes, a faint narrowing, gone in an instant. "Lightning-based?" he asked quietly. "Yes, Patriarch. Academy medics stabilize him." However, the attendant hesitated, eyes darting across the data stream. Forensic mana readings indicate an unfamiliar energy trace mixed with a lightning signature. Similar to young Master Garrick's lightning descent, but altered at a structural level. Aaron finally turned his head, just slightly, dark eyes gleaming under heavy brows. Altered, he repeated softly. The attendant nodded, swallowing. Yes, sir. Academy analysis suggests it was a replication ability of unknown ceiling. The attacker was identified as Evelyn Marin of Class 0. The room fell silent again. Beyond the glass, clouds drifted over the moon, casting fleeting shadows across Aaron's face. His jaw tightened slightly, his eyes reflecting nothing but cold calculation. Marin, he said quietly. Third branch family. Low seat. No strategic relevance. Yes, patriarch. Aaron placed his glass down on a lacquered side table with quiet precision. He leaned back into his chair, steepling his fingers under his chin. And yet, she carries a replication type strong enough to mirror Thorn lightning techniques. He exhaled softly, a slow breath that clouded faintly in the cool air. What an amusing development. The attendant hesitated, glancing down at the tablet before continuing. Shall I dispatch an arbitration team to submit an academy inquiry for assault charges against her, sir? Aaron was silent for a long moment. Then he chuckled softly, a low, humorless sound that seemed to vibrate through the room. No, he said. The attendant blinked. Sir. Aaron stood slowly, adjusting the front of his dark robe. The silk rippled with his movements, embroidered with silver threads depicting lightning striking mountain peaks. She was able to replicate lightning descent permanently. His eyes narrowed as he gazed at his own reflection in the glass. That is not an enemy to crush. That is an asset to observe. He turned fully, finally facing the attendant. Under the lantern light, his features were harsh and severe, marked with fine scars across his chin and left brow, trophies of the battlefield he rarely spoke of. Continue monitoring her, he ordered softly. Do not interfere. Do not reveal our interest. If Class 0 births such monsters, let them grow in their den. We will harvest them when the time is right. The attendant bowed deeply. Understood, patriarch. Aaron waved him away. Go. The man turned and left, closing the door quietly behind him. Aaron remained still, hands clasped behind his back as he stared out at the moonlit pines once again. Infinite replication, he thought, his mind racing with implications and silent schemes. A faint smile curved his lips, one that never reached his eyes. The age of hunters is changing, and House Thorn will not be left behind. Outside, the moon drifted higher above the trees, silvering the quiet estate as a cold wind blew through the black pines.